Good morning and welcome to the Morning Connection. We're coming to you live from the Ligony Club because it is Thursday, free-flowing Thursdays, when our conversations just follow the Spirit and whatever is in the atmosphere, we respond to it. We are hosted by the Ligony Club and by JD's Urban Pub, which is the wonderful, delightful restaurant that is resident on club property. And we are pleased to welcome on air those of you who join us early in the morning, and online the faithful who come online early in the morning to keep us company. We welcome those who are the production team, members of our production team who are on spot making it happen, and of course my co-host, my friend, our beloved Pastor Percival. Good morning, Pastor.
Good morning, Minette. How are you today? I am very good.
You're answering for me or you're answering?
Good morning, Minette.
Good morning, Pastor Percival.
I'm very good despite all of what has happened and what will continue to happen. I believe our right frame of mind is so important in terms of how you respond to issues that come at you from varying angles. But I'm good. Very good. I'm very, very, very good.
All right, sound like you're speaking prophetically now.
Yes, sister, you have to do that. Hope thou in the Lord. Why is my soul cast down? David was in a place that he was wondering what was happening. He said, why should my soul be cast down? Hope thou in the Lord. So I'm hoping in the Lord. And I'm just wondering, with all the things that are happening locally and overseas, is there hope? Yes, there is hope, because he's still on his throne. Amen.
You know, Pastor, you have developed many talents in the time that I've known you. I see that you can speak in first, second, and third voice. You're the preacher, you're the audience, and sometimes
I speak in the middle voice. You know that in Hebrew there's a middle voice. I heard
the passive.
I heard a Jewish scholar say that recently, that some of the times in the translation, because there's no middle voice in English, but in those Eastern languages there's a middle voice.
And you see it when you read scripture, you see it all the time. That passive voice would suggest that there's someone else other than the two main actors
that are working.
That's usually the prophet then. And that's why a lot of the prophetic, the scriptures in the major books of prophecy read so oddly at sometimes they say who's really speaking here? Is it the prophet or God? But then the middle voice, middle voice is the prophetic voice.
Right. So it is good. We see yesterday when we prayed and we've done our thing, and I had to come back and speak to COVID, declaring over Jamaica Jehovah Rapha in terms of healing across our nation, in terms of they have declared a fifth wave. We are declared that it will not be so. It will come and it will go, because we believe that our Father has his eyes on our Jamaica. So this morning we could say, Eternal Father, bless our land. Release the blessings that come with healing, that come with restoration, that comes out of the new covenant that we have with you as believers, because we declare over this nation this morning, we know the plans that you have for us as a country, plans to do us good and not for evil, plans for success and not for destruction. So as I release that into the atmosphere, I invite each person of faith just to claim that and to begin to manifest that in their physical reality even now, in the name of Jesus.
You stirred up an issue which I wanted to address. It may have been either Tuesday or Wednesday, but you brought it back into focus, and I want us to spend some time on it this morning. And this is the unity between people and land.
Oh yes, the lady when she said
the people, our anthem. Yes. Our anthem says, bless the land. but are we separating land from people in our thoughts? Which she clearly saw a separation,
The
and it
peoples
is
of the land.
yeah, it is something that I would like us to discuss. Looking first at the scriptural foundation, it's an important issue because, of course, right now we see that people are very disturbed about the dysfunctional relationship that exists between people and land today. The interference that we see occurring as government and others who should be administering the rights over land, as they do it in a way which dispossesses people of land. It's time for our first break, which I think we'll just establish our foundation and then take the break at a later time, because we have a lot to do this morning. We're going to have two very important guests. Mr. Joseph Patterson, president of the United Independents Congress, has kindly consented to come into studio, outdoor studio that is. So he's going to be spending the morning with us, and we want to give him a fair opportunity to speak to our listeners on the various things that he has in mind were he to lead this country. And we also have our very good friend Winsome Callum coming in studio as well to continue her contribution on issues pertaining to customer education. And we know that the government funded co-pay system is underway now. It is to cover the billing for the months of, it's supposed to be 4 months, so it's supposed to be April, May, June, right up to July.
No, it's May, June, July.
No, it's not 3 months, it's 4 months.
Because when she should clarify, because when she was here the last
she said, I thought she said you should see it in April. Right, so you'll see it in April, you'll see it in May, you'll see it in June, it goes up to summer.
To July.
Yeah, well, she's coming, so
She'll
obviously,
right.
If Percy and I are bad students,
yes, we were good students. We'll
be brought in line.
Yes, yeah,
right.
Yeah. But even as you establish the land thing,
yes,
the land. I want to go to Acts 17:24 to 28. I want to read it for us. He says to us, this is Paul speaking at Mars Hill. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by human hands. And he is not served by human hands, as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out to him and find him, though he's not far from any one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own prophets had said, we are his offspring. So this was Paul speaking at Mars and making some important declarations. He's creator, he's made heaven and earth, and in his infinite wisdom he has set in history the times and the seasons and where nations should arise. So even though we would say we're not happy with how Jamaica has come about, I would declare that God has understood that, and in his infinite wisdom he's working and bringing all things together. So in the end, people look to him and seek him. And so over to you, the people are with the land. They are in God's own mind and so on. And you were, I think, quoting from Ruth and Naomi when Our Lady said that, we said, Jamaica, eternal Father, bless our land. But we have said on this program that when there's innocent blood shed on the land, it brings a curse. And because of the people, but the people and the land, in my own mind, coexist together, and you cannot separate them. Yeah, so land and people are together, you can't separate them.
Right. So there are several kind of scriptural foundation for this proposition or this principle, because I think it is an established principle. And we see it first appearing when the Israelites were promised their own land, and as they came into the promised land and were given instructions to take possession of it, a number of statements were made in the division of the land, cut into lots and so on. And one important point made by Moses was that there should be no Israelite who is without land.
True.
And we understand land as the foundation for wealth and for economic activity.
Everything, yes.
We did, as Pastor said, I had gone into the book of Ruth and didn't complete what I wanted to say on it. And this is from Ruth chapter 4, and most people know the great romantic story. Or maybe it's a human trafficking story, depending on
how you
where you sit.
We give these modern names to to those people in those times seem a normal course of what we're doing, yes.
Right. So, the great lady Naomi had lost not just her husband but her two boys, and her two sons left her with two daughters-in-law. One stayed in Moab, the other traveled back to Bethlehem with her. They returned to their promised land. Clearly, Ruth was a woman of tender years. She was still young and marriageable.
That's Ruth.
That's Ruth.
Okay,
Ruth was still young, not Naomi. Well, we don't know really, because girls married young.
Yeah, that's true.
Naomi might have been in her 40s, and Ruth might have been in her 20s.
Right, that's true.
But anyway, it is Ruth who Naomi decides needs to rebuild the family line through marriage. And consistent with tradition, the man to whom they looked was from their own tribe, their own clan. And it's very interesting because that issue came up when our man from East Africa made the comment that in our tribal origins had the grandmother and the extended family playing this role. It's a normal course of thing, that your family was also your economic base.
China.
Yeah.
That's why they.
Yeah, that was also your economic base. So you married within the tribe, and you kept the wealth and you kept the land. This is why I am mentioning that story. It's all about the land. So Ruth, being a widow, the land to which her late husband was entitled was now available to be redeemed by a member of the tribe, so that the land would remain within the family. And Naomi organized for Ruth to put herself in a compromising position with old man Boaz, so that he was a much older man.
He was a mature gentleman.
Yes, of course, as we were saying. Maybe it meant he was 50.
It could be, and she was
in her 20s.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, when Boaz took the bait and set about organizing the redemption of this land, he spoke with the person who was first in line above him, and he sought to persuade him to take this land. And the man said, yes, sure, I will redeem the land. And after that agreement was made, Boaz then rather craftily said, well, when you take the land,
you take the old lady and everything.
He says, on the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. So you see, the land and the family name are traveling together in an ownership stream. So that is a lot about tradition and how land moved. But of course, at this point, the guardian redeemer said, I cannot redeem it because I might. No, guardian redeemer. I'm reading. The guardian redeemer said, I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself, I cannot do it. Now, what he's referring to is that the land to which he is entitled and which carries his family name, if he were to put his name against someone else's land, it would leave his land stripped of descendants, because he would have put his children would now be associated with this piece of land from Ruth and not with the other land. And it appears you couldn't be in two places at once.
Sure about that?
What? That you couldn't be in two places at once?
No, I'm just talking in terms of the Kingsman Redeemer.
Oh no, that's another word for it. That's another term for it. But I'm reading from the NIV version. So yes. Well, guardian and kinsman are guardian and kinsman are referring to the same principle and the same concept in succession. Because this is succession law. This is the origin of succession law. Where in Jamaica in modern times now we say if a man dies, there are some persons who stand in line to inherit his property, and we start with yes. So this is succession law. It is saying your family stands in line in a certain order. It would be if you're not married, it would be your father, your parents first.
Okay.
And if you are married, it's your spouse first, your children. And when you run out of close blood relations, it begins to find more remote cousins and siblings of the half blood and so on and so forth. So this is the beginning of succession law as we have carried it down the ages.
That's interesting.
That the land and the bloodline run together. Property and bloodline run together. When Mr. Patterson joins us, we are going to have a further conversation about the land use policy that his government would seek to introduce, and how you transition from where we are now to a place where every Jamaican born individual is associated with land. Bear in mind that at the beginning of things for the ex-slave community, Israel, they didn't own land. They had to be put in possession of land. So there is a point in which a government takes a deliberate, intentional decision to put people in possession of land without them having to pay over money. Not an NHT situation where you're an eligible contributor. No, a situation where just by virtue of your existence,
as an
are
African, a descendant of African slaves,
you are entitled to land.
Yeah.
And the only land to which every Jamaican can lay entitlement right now is the land that we stand on in Jamaica, and some of it is still carrying the curious name Crown Land. So Crown Land belongs to all the people.
Okay.
And there has to be a deliberate policy of, the Israelites cast lots. Do you remember?
Yeah, man.
They cast lots, and then each tribe was given the responsibility, each clan was given the responsibility to do the assignment so that every family would have land. And then we come to what's happening in the book of Ruth, where the succession line is being traversed. So one man was closer up in line. He says, no, I won't take it because I don't want. So the next man in line took it, and with the land came the people.
Okay. But it's interesting, even as we speak about justice and law, I'm trying to remember the names of the ladies. Their father had died.
Yes, they have.
And they says, but everybody getting land. So what we are going to do? Because there's no man here.
Zelophehad. Those yes.
And they said, and Moses went and made a case and treated to Moses.
Oh yes, they went to the judge.
Yes, and he says, and they went and checked, and God said, no, they are right. They must get land too.
Of course.
They are casting lots and so on. They must.
Because no Israelite was supposed to be without land.
Right.
Whether them a woman or man, and
Which is some of the time you reflect on some of the intricacies when you read it and you understand. I say, but God really is God enough in terms of the wisdom that comes from Him and the justice that He meets out. He meets out to, yes.
Zelophehad had 5 daughters: Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. He had no sons.
Yeah.
What a blessed man.
Yes.
I'm kidding. Sons are a blessing. You need both.
Yeah, you need both.
Right. So it was Zelophehad who had no sons.
Yeah.
And his girls had to be given land.
Yeah.
So the idea of people without land, squatting is a made-up term. There's no such thing as squatting.
Yeah, it's true.
Man must have land. When you stand on the ground you stand on, you live on. So
So this land grab that is happening, and people talking about, this is so wrong and unjust. The government, I believe, must take the lead.
Absolutely, sir. We need a government, we need people in charge who recognize that this is a part of the natural entitlement, and take deliberate and intentional steps to ensure that when you have land, if you want to put up 2 leaf on it or 2 stick and live under it, that's your problem. If people have land, we would worry about housing.
No, because Jamaicans, I find it so fascinating.
We're very creative
and innovative. So
yes.
I've seen where people have got the land and they say, let us put up this structure. And in time ensuing, you notice what is happening here. It's a complete house that's out of their resources and their time. You drive through the country and you see this man has a piece of land. And you see the structure going up, and you say, how you build that? But it's over time.
You take your time
and do it because it is your land, and so you're gonna do everything because this is what it is here. This land is my land.
So there are 2 things quite iniquitous that have arisen as part of the oppression of people. One is dispossessing people of land, not recognizing that by the very fact of your existence, you are entitled to own a piece of land. Own it, have exercise jurisdiction over it. The second is property tax. I'm not saying that taxes associated with property don't make sense, because there are some common things that need to be in place in order to administer and secure the proper use of land. But there are some persons who own land, and the taxation on the land, which is, do you remember what led to the American Revolution? Taxation without representation.
Yes.
The taxation on the land just makes no sense. There is nothing you are getting from the government associated with your use and enjoyment of that land, yet the taxes on it are just outrageous. So new government, new leaders, whomever you are, please understand that man's access to and enjoyment of land is not something that they get from other men. It is a divine right, and if it is dishonored, if it is treated in a certain way to leave people homeless or existing in a state that is not humane and dignified, there is going to be a punishment for it. All right. So there's the other part of it now, touching on whom we're having as a guest, because we gotta kind of warm up the spirit and change the atmosphere depending on who's going to be with us. I want to talk about a scripture from the book of 1 Samuel chapter 2, and I want to look at verses 30 and 33. Wow. All right. When persons, this is a standard that Percival and I maintain, persons who exercise governmental authority or political authority are exercising it based on a delegation from the source of all power. There is one source of all power. If you are exercising authority, you did not create it yourself. You didn't improvise yourself. It's not something that came out of you naturally. It is an anointment. In certain circles, you say you're anointed for this or that, but it is you have been set apart, identified, given special permission and enabling to do various things. When that happens and you treat it in a dishonorable way, you break faith with the people that you're to serve, you are contemptuous of even the existence of the source of power, there are some consequences, and you see across the public landscape that Jamaica is feeling the consequences of the lack of honor and the disregard that we have for the authority given to us to do certain things for the people of God. And all of us are the people of God, by the way. I'm not talking about for believers or church people. All that God has created belong to Him. So when He puts you or me in charge of something, he has expectations concerning our behavior.
How we respond to people in situations.
Yes. All right. So walk with me now. Do you remember the condition in Israel during the days of Eli the priest? All right. And there some behaviors were complained about.
God of mercy.
Eli, the old priest,
With them 2 sons.
with his 2 sons who were, if you could say now, it's the equivalent of what we say when they steal from the public purse and the things
that's what they were doing.
That is what they were doing. And Eli, knowing that his sons were up, so let's say Eli is the prime minister.
And they never rebuked.
And let's say the bad sons are the ministers who have them hand all over the place, and those who you have government contracts going, and they are the ones who own the trucks and run every racket, and not even garbage can be collected based on a straight arrangement. We have our fingers or toes in every conceivable pie. Nothing can take place without our standing in line to take the fat of it.
Yeah.
Because that was actually literally one of the things they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody understands when you're doing a sacrifice, the fat portion, the sweet portion is the part that burns and sends up the smoke, and that is what you are really offering. The richness of your sacrifice is in the fat. And these boys would come to the people preparing the sacrifice, and they would take the best portions before the offering could be properly given. And so they were stealing from the fat of the land, literally.
And that was it was only stealing from the fat. We're doing other things, laying with the woman and
I
all
know,
different kind of thing. You never want to say that though.
I left that one for you. And so not only, as Pastor says, not only were they stealing the fat, they're sleeping with the women who worked in the temple, and I mean every kind of misdeed. Very similar to what is happening here. Alright, I have kind of played the drums and warmed it up. So eventually you know that God their Father had to intervene. And what I'm going to read to you now is the pronouncement that was made, and I'm going to liken it to some things that are happening here. He says, "Far be it from me. Those who honor me, I will honor. But those who despise me will be disdained. The time is coming when I will cut short your strength and the strength of your priestly house, so that no one in it will reach old age, and you will see distress in my dwelling. Although good will be done to Israel, no one in your family line will ever reach old age. Every one of you that I do not cut off from serving at my altar, I will spare, only to destroy your sight and sap your strength, and all your descendants will die in the prime of life." All right. Let's look at the education sector. How many teachers have died? And I'm not saying that they are the wicked sons, Please understand that this pronouncement says your descendants. We've had, just this morning, there's another report of a vice principal who died at age 62. There are some things that happened. Yesterday we had Mr. Dean being reported as saying this is not normal. He lost one child 11 years ago, and this child now age 23 taken like that, gunshot wound, while at a funeral, her grandmother's funeral. There are some things that are happening which we all acknowledge not normal. When you read the litany of experienced teachers who have just fallen within a short space of time, you cannot miss the spiritual significance of it. And if you are saying to yourself, no man, that no normal, you gotta go and study to see what is the pattern that went before, which can help you to give meaning to these things. We have dishonored the source of the power that we have. You cannot think of children without thinking of education. When our children are under pressure, when our children grow up to be, you know, I'm not gonna say useless. That's what came to mind. But when our children grow up to be a source, they're not walking in purpose. They're more a source of pain and hurt than they are of pride and joy. It means that we failed somewhere at an earlier stage of life. We failed them. We failed them at an earlier stage of life.
And if the we is the parents, but the society on a whole.
It's the society on a whole, and it is the education sector in particular, where we have had a system now of putting children through public education going on for generations. The Ministry of Education is one of the oldest ministries of government. Did you know that? They boast of it.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
And we've not sought to break, to put in place a system that will enable our children to find God, to turn to God, train up a child the way he should go.
We haven't, in fact. We seem to be drifting farther away from it.
People are advocating that you take, like what has happened in the States, take
God out of the school, take God out of education, because because faith is private, and faith should be kept in a dark corner of your home.
It should
where,
be. Yeah, and so the result of it, and we're beginning to see it, because if now people are complaining about God rings and all of those things, and it has come through the songs and everything, what has happened to home, and what has happened to what it is we are teaching from the top right down to the bottom in terms of the importance of reverence for God, of the fear of God in our people. Yeah.
So he said, those who honor me, I will honor.
Yes.
But those who despise me will be disdained. How do you honor God? That is a question that is going to resonate through our discussions this morning. How do we honor God so that we can avoid being further disdained, because we are seeing it. We're seeing it already. Then I want to go to 35, verse 35, because I don't like to sound the warning without pointing to the door of escape or the remedy. In 35, he says, and I feel like I'm saying something of significance here. In verse 35, he says, I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who will do according to what is in my heart and mind. I will firmly establish his priestly house, and they will minister before my anointed one always. So, when God said I will raise up for myself, it means that coming out of the nowhere that we like to say, like, can anything good come out of, where was it? Bethlehem? Nazareth. Can anything good come out of Spanish Town, Mount Moriah, or any of the no-name places from which some of us hail? When God said I will raise up for myself, it means that somebody who you never thought was worthy
has been in preparation,
has been under the gun, being prepared. So we're having as our guest Mr. Joseph Patterson. Could he be?
Yeah, interesting.
Could he be the faithful priest? We're coming to our break, and I just want to remind you that here on the Morning Connection, we speak principles that emanate from the kingdom, but we present them in a way that can allow you to separate yourself from the misconceptions, the dogmas, the doctrines that have failed us in the past, and look at things through eyes that are just filled with love, honor, respect, and an understanding that we are created beings and that we must show honor to our divine creator. That is what we seek to.
To the ancient places.
Yeah, we must return to the ancient place. All right, let's take our break. We'll be right back. This is the Morning Connection, coming to you from the beautiful Ligony Club in New Kingston, Jamaica. Morning Connection. Again, we remind you we are here live at the Ligony Club, where we are being hosted by our club family and JD's Urban Pub, the place for the best in local cuisine.
Yeah, but if we believe, as many are prone to think that God is not interested in what is happening in the world, if we believe that God does not hold people to account, I believe we are so wrong. We are so wrong in terms of that belief. And I remember yesterday you mentioned Daniel. You had gone to the book of Daniel in terms of declaring that God said to Daniel when he interpreted Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And Daniel was wise enough to understand that the wisdom and the interpretation that he was giving to the king at that point in time was not him.
Not based on any special wisdom,
but based on
that
who
he
God
had,
was,
but
and God had chosen to use him to reveal that. So even for our leaders, and this morning we're going to be speaking to Mr. Patterson from UIC, which is United
Independence
Congress. He needs to understand that, as we keep saying, that all authority is delegated authority, and you rule on behalf of God. And if God has declared himself to be a God of righteousness, of justice, of mercy and truth, then everything that you do must be rooted and grounded in that understanding and knowledge of who God is. When we step away from that, then God brings us the book, and we have seen how many great leaders, because they've stepped away from the principles of righteousness and justice and truth and mercy, they were once and they were no more. So as we just remind our leaders, be so very careful in terms of what you do. And as Minette rightly pointed out, if you are the leader and there are people who report to you, you have to be so careful, like with Eli
and his two sons,
that you are not removed in posterity in terms of what you do. So everybody related to you is held in account. So even in Jamaica, the Prime Minister is the chief servant, chief minister, chief among ministers, and they report to him. He has to be so careful that he deals with everything not in a partial way, but in an impartial way, holding in clear tension the principles of righteousness and justice, truth and mercy.
Do you know, Percy, when we spoke with Mr. Patterson yesterday, on Tuesday,
yeah.
And he explained that his government is designed to be inclusive, and he will show no preference to any particular faith or belief system, because it is not his wish to exclude or to be discriminatory. So, and that is an appropriate political position, because the politics is for everyone to feel welcome, and then because we are a democracy, then we say the will of the majority would prevail. I was reflecting on that and saying, okay, you and I are of a specific belief, and we have tried to break that belief down into some principles to which a lot of people already subscribe, though they don't associate it with a point of origin in a faith-based system of belief. I say that it really doesn't matter. There's a point at which it does not matter where you set your foundation, provided that the principles which emanate from your foundation are in congruence, consistent, in agreement with the principles that other well-thinking persons ascribe to. And that is my politically correct way of saying that I too want to be inclusive, and it is not important for me that you feel the same way I do about God, about creation, about faith. If you and I are in agreement that honoring our parents is a good thing, is a necessary thing, then we work on honor.
True.
If we are in agreement that
Respect.
justice and respect are to be freely and equitably meted out to persons of like circumstances, then we go about doing it, and we let our actions, our works speak for our belief. I'm not going to say, oh, well, you are Muslim, or you are Hindu, or you are Baptist, or you are Pentecostal, and because of these difference in packaging, we cannot find agreement.
Common ground.
We can't find common ground.
There are some principles that are common ground across, I believe, all major religions in the world.
Very true.
Yeah.
And so when we ask the question, well, how do we honor? How do we show honor to the source of the power, to the source of the goodness that we desire and that we are enjoying? I expect that all well-thinking persons should come up with the same ideas, with the same principles.
True.
That is my position. So as we look to engage with the gentleman concerning his ambitions for government and for leadership, we want to pull out those principles that we can look at and say, well, okay, this is good, that is good, that one we need to have some further discussions on it. So that is how I want us to proceed, because we believe in what has been said and the pattern that has been laid down, that if the first set who have been anointed to do a specific task are dishonorable in the execution of that task, they are going to be removed. They are going to be cut short. Their descendants going to die in the prime of life, meaning, in their 50s and 60s, when they should be getting ready to take their place as elders at the gate. They're going to be falling out.
Yeah.
And we see that happening. I mean, what is happening with these
education system?
Yes, we see it happening.
One of the things, and because we are in pursuit of the things, of the truth, with so many teachers dying, so then is there a common link between these persons who have passed? And we just need to, I would assume if people die suddenly, autopsy would be done in terms of determining what has happened.
Cause of death has to be ascertained. So we're talking a little bit of law now and procedure. And I can't help but be, even in my grief, I was amused by the police treating the death of a 84-year-old woman who died at home as a sudden death.
Okay. Yes, it's true. Yeah, because she's gone past her 70s.
She was hardly cut off in the prime of her life. But sudden death is just and death that has occurred outside. You know what is death that occur outside of the hospital or outside of medical care, because you were not known to be ill, and sudden death has to be explained. Cause of death has to be identified for everybody who die, and of course cause of death is different from circumstances of death, which could be a homicide or it could just be natural causes. So I know where you're going, because having gone through mass vaccination in some aspects of the public sector, and persons dying kind of rapidly, you are looking for the scientific explanation and whether or not there is a link.
Yeah.
But whether you do a post-mortem or autopsy, or is really outside of a clear homicidal killing, it becomes the choice of the family.
True. Okay.
Yeah. But many times, and this is what I kind of like about how you look at matters in a spiritual frame. Each person may have died from what you might call natural or expected cause. Somebody heart bad, somebody hypertensive. There are circumstances in their medical history which makes their death readily understandable. But in the realm of the spiritual, you always have to consider what environmental or spiritual event caused the deaths to occur in such rapid succession or close proximity. When you see something that looks unusual, there is a cause for it. People are dying every day, we know that.
True.
And there's a certain number of accidents and so on that take place on a cycle, and we know that. You can stand at a higher level, look down on it and say and understand when a country is under oppression. Generally, Jamaica is under oppression, generally.
That's why we break.
If you look at Jamaica and compare it to Barbados or compare it to St. Lucia or something different are going on in Jamaica. So we know that. But when even in a country under oppression, it gets kicked up a notch.
Wow.
Which is what is going on here.
Yeah.
It's been kicked up a notch. You absolutely have to look at it through a very spiritual vein and see what would be the likely explanation for this. Our teachers, the education sector is critical. Me think it more important than the finance.
Okay, because people related.
It is people related, and it targets
capital.
training the young.
Yeah.
This is our great wealth, our great resource. Next to the land is the people, and the land is useless without the people.
Wow.
So when you see that sector is under what looks like a type of siege, you know. And so it took me to the words of Samuel chapter 2. But as I said, I gotta remember that there is also the promise that I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who will do according to what is in my heart and mind. And I will establish that priestly house, and they will minister before my anointed one always. Pastor, I have to look at what does it mean now? What is in the heart and mind of God? So we're coming to those principles of truth and justice and mercy.
Yeah, it is. And as we talk about raising up someone else, remember what happened to Saul?
Mm-hmm.
Because Saul had been raised up as the first king of Israel. And he was the most unlikely candidate in terms of how he saw himself. But then he was physically taller than most other persons. And when they called him, he ran away. But yet God says, okay, let's go with it. But then it is recorded that he saw himself as larger than life, we say. It was because of his own thing, that's why he was raised up. And what God did, he pronounced a sentence on him and says, because you have been disobedient, because you have taken on things that are not your purview. Remember when he was supposed to have sacrifice?
When Samuel was supposed to conduct the sacrifice, and Samuel was late
and him said,
in arriving.
And then him start, he not take responsibility, which is something, he never took responsibility for his action. Him say, because
the people were impatient, man.
And then and Saul says no, and then what he did, Samuel said to him, you've done wrong. And he said, all right, let me not lose faith in the people's eye. And Samuel turned away and he grabbed onto Samuel's coat, and Samuel, so today, today, as the prophet says, has the kingdom been removed from your hands. And God set about raising up another king, and that took a long time, because when he anointed David to become king, he said he was about 17 and he never ascended to the throne until he was 34. So even today, as we look, and
took about 20 years.
Yeah, when God waiting has anointed the person who's going to replace those who he has raised up.
So that number is kind of consistent. Our friend from Santa Cruz said it takes 20 years for a new party.
But see what happens. But
So,
some of the time, God,
so the raising up is not an overnight thing, unless it is so required.
so required, because then he says, can a nation be born in a day?
Yeah.
Yes, if God ordained it and the circumstances has ordained become right. So we just have to be.
But on that score, I always remember finding it so interesting that when when God spoke to Abraham and said, this is the land I'm giving you, but your descendants are going to spend 430 years in Egypt. Tied to that time span was another statement that the sins of the Amorites have to come to full measure before the land will spit them out, and the people who he says are to take the land can come into possession. So there's always this balancing of rights and benefits, if I could put it that way, in the divine plan, that if something promised to you today really is gonna be yours when the person who's occupying it now dispossesses himself of it. Let's put it that way.
He this
because of your actions. And it is the same thing. We look at Jamaica and we've got to understand that there are some things happening which, if you look at them through spiritual eyes, you will know exactly what to do to bring things back in order. All right, I want us to take a look at the newspaper before it is time for our guest.
Yes.
And it's almost time. First, it would be time for a break. I looked at the Gleaner report on Venezuela's willingness to resume trading oil with us. And I remember when we spoke about it here on the program, and I said that, of course, Jamaica extend their hand, Venezuela will take it. Yes, because there's relationship, there's politics and there's relationship, and it's the right thing to do. And it has caused me to just reflect on how we are treating with some other things, the CARICOM and Jamaica breaking rank and moving off to take the Secretary General position at a time when protocol and convention and relationship says you should be doing otherwise. I'm looking at those things and I'm saying, in truth, the same principles of honor, respect, brotherhood, covenant that we advocate on the domestic local front, those same principles apply on the international, regional, world stage. There has to be some concept of faith and trust, or just
good faith, yes.
Good faith. There has to be that concept. So Venezuela has said some very kind things concerning their response should
we hope
Jamaica.
That we'll see it soon in terms of the gas prices.
Yeah, but this is a good move on the Gleaners' part, and this is how the media can have a tremendous impact, because they went ahead and did an interview with the man from Venezuela. This is not government reporting that Venezuela says yes, this is media having conducted an interview, putting the story out to get the conversation going, and to send a message to American embassy up the road that, listen, Jamaica and Venezuela and Venezuela understand that the wolf was at the door, and so the sheep had to go duck. No hard feelings is the headline. It said no hard feelings. Venezuela says door open to restoration of oil trade with Jamaica. And there is a rehashing of the shameful event in which Jamaica preemptively bought out the Venezuela's shares in Petrojam, and put the money in escrow so that we could avoid sanctions from Washington. I still feel a little shame when I see it. I will explain when we return from the break. I got the signal. It is now 7:30. When we return, we should have our guest with us. I saw him on the terrace a short while ago. So we're very looking forward to having another conversation with Mr. Patterson. Please stay with us. We will be right back. Good morning and welcome back to the Morning Connection. Your hosts, Minette Lawrence and Percival Palmer, have been joined by a very special guest. Welcome, Mr. Patterson.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, sir.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Patterson, the farmer and the beekeeper.
Oh, you should say Farmer Patterson.
Farmer Patterson. Yes, welcome, sir. Glad to have you in person.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, so we started a conversation on Tuesday,
Yeah.
and you so kindly graciously and kindly consented to come in person. And I know there are many questions that we want to go beyond the political talk to the real thing in terms of implementation. And so we were talking about leadership this morning in terms of how important leadership is, because it is the beginning and the end of success in person's life. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. Leadership is critical. In any given society, you need to have someone who's able to set a clear vision and who's able to bring people together, organize and achieve the objectives that will push us forward as a nation, as a group, as an organization, whatever it is. And so I think leadership is critical. And for you to be an effective leader, because there are good leaders and bad leaders. You have leaders who can lead you to something bad and something good. I think you're interested in those that will lead us to something good.
Remember in high school, the
Yes.
guy who would get everybody getting in trouble, and he was a bad leader, but
Yes.
but it seemed like you were a good leader when you were in high school, because you were a head boy and
Yes.
all of those different things.
But in high school, I did a lot of things. I was one of those who failed the common entrance twice. And so when I went to Spanish Town Secondary, I decided I was going to change things. And so I really got involved in the society, in the school society, creating the science club, creating the drama club, organizing students, becoming president of the student council, becoming head boy, and really lifting the standard of the school. As you know, secondary schools were not top rated at all back then. So I tried to elevate my fellow students and get us to a level that would make us comparable with other high school students.
Okay. Because you went to Spanish Town Secondary and then went to Stats.
Yes.
So
How did that happen?
yes.
So Stats at the time had this
Isaac
program.
Henry.
Yes, Isaac Henry. They had a program where they picked the best of the secondary schools and gave them a second chance at the technical high school. So I was among those who got a second chance to go to Stats.
Okay. Minute?
Oh, my turn.
Yes, your turn.
So I don't know if you had a chance to listen to us earlier this morning.
No, I was dealing with some fires, at the office. So
Oh, the office being personal office or political office?
both.
Both.
Yes.
All right.
So early in the morning?
So early in the morning, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yes. When you take on the responsibilities of leadership, you don't get to sleep as much as you'd like.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Well, that is there are some jurisdictions in which the health of the leader is as important as the finances of the country. Jamaica has really not been one of those. I mean, our leaders can look as unhealthy as they like, but what I am assuming that being a modern day leader, you have a perspective on health and wholeness.
Balance. Yes. Self-care.
No,
It's funny, the
not
word
on.
you're using, yes.
I know, I'm not punning. Not on wholeness.
Wholeness.
But if you have a perspective on wholeness, the Prime Minister, you can offer it too.
I'm more interested in the wholeness of the person.
Okay. So, all right.
Yes. Speak to me a little bit on that, because today is to really look at some the softer, intangible issues that nonetheless are part of what makes the big things great.
Absolutely. Well, I have been labeled as a health freak, if you will. I've been a vegan for a number of years, 26 or so years, to be honest. I believe in the wholeness of the person, mind, body, and personality or character or spirit, if you will. So I strongly believe in building the total person. So eating healthy, thinking healthy, and having healthy relationships are very important to me. They guide my philosophy, my thoughts, my actions. So even though I lead the UIC and I do lose some sleep, I try to find a balance as much as possible. I exercise every day normally, except for maybe on a Sunday or a Saturday I might take some day off. But I work out every day. I know I don't look muscular, but I try to stay, fit. I believe in family. So I've been married to my wife now for 28 years.
Oh.
And it's one wife.
One wife.
Married a husband of one.
Yeah.
Husband of one wife, yes.
And incidentally, we met in the 8th grade at Spanish Murray Secondary.
Wow.
So it was love at first sight, if you will. We became very close friends. She was the deputy head girl when I was the head boy. She was my secretary in the science club. She was my secretary in the student council. She was my secretary in the drama club. And she
married secretaries.
She really supported me when I did school challenge quiz, and she was there with me at all of the games and all of the competitions. So she's really a very supportive.
So
friend.
why isn't she here?
She actually had to travel today.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't bring her here with me, but she's normally with me everywhere.
Yes,
And,
yes.
She's a model of the that woman the Bible talks about.
The virtuous woman out of Proverbs.
The virtuous
Yes.
woman. That's my wife, and I could not be anything without her. My mother laid a great foundation, and my wife built on it.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so you two have truly become one from
When
a
are
long
we
time.
when are we voting?
Yes. So you believe in family, and that's a very important
And
part.
I truly believe in the natural family. I know there are various configurations now being put forward in terms of what a family is.
Yes.
But I really believe that we ought to pay attention to what it means to be a family and what we transmit to our children and say this is a family. Because there are consequences. And while I embrace everybody's personal choices, we have to look at how our choices affect our children.
Okay.
Because you can destroy the mind, and you can destroy the character, and you can destroy a society if you don't have a proper family and the values transmitted from that family to the next generation.
Okay.
So is there a difference for you between embracing and respecting? Because there is a difference for me. So when you say you embrace everybody's personal choice, what does that mean? And think of it in terms of respecting it and embracing it.
Sure. For me, I may use the word interchangeably.
Yes.
But what really matters is that I may not be in agreement with your choices.
Meaning you wouldn't have made
I
the same
wouldn't make
choice.
The same choices. I wouldn't endorse your choice. I wouldn't promote your choice, but I would respect your choice.
Absolutely. And that's the kind of opening line now for us to talk a little bit about human rights.
Yes.
A big issue tied up also with the rights of indigenous peoples, because they say we're going into animal farm now. All animals are born equal, but some are more equal than others.
You probably would have read that. That was a text as a standard book for us growing up. Yes, right.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And it's a sentiment that we see played out in the political arena all the time, where there are some who take to themselves just a higher share or quality of rights than they give to others. You were arrested whilst protesting and promoting the freedom for persons to make a personal choice concerning medical care.
Yes.
Was that a difficult thing for you?
The arrest or the choice of going out?
Well, the arrest is the consequence.
consequence of going out.
But when you're going out, you know that that's a risk.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. For me, the consequences of not doing it were greater than the consequences of doing it. I needed for Jamaicans to understand that not only does somebody care, but that they need to care about their personal rights and freedom. It is a dangerous thing when we go down the road where we believe that because somebody is elected, whether or not they're elected properly or their election represents a majority, we should not believe that any individual should have the authority to override our personal rights and freedoms under any circumstances. They may suggest, they may educate, they may inform, they may support, but they may never be allowed or must never be allowed to take away our personal rights and freedom. for me under any pretext, even in war. And this is, unusual because, some people think that
Because of war.
If it's a war, then
everything is suspended.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. You never suspend the basic fundamental rights of human beings under any pretext. This is why now you need leaders. Leaders must be able to encourage, must be able to influence, must be able to motivate people to action, not use force to get their way.
So they can achieve informed consent.
Absolutely.
And the Vienna Convention and the other treaties that have come out of abuse of prisoners and abuse of individuals under circumstances of siege or stress all point to the rightness of that position. But I have to ask you this then. Did you listen to the current Minister of Health speak on the issue of vaccination for children and so on?
Yes, I've heard a number of comments from the Minister.
Right, so you count it a victory?
It's good if they make adjustments towards their previous position. I think it's important that we, generally speaking, that we make sure that we protect the rights of children and every single adult, and especially children, because children are very vulnerable, right? They can't make decisions on their own. So you want to make sure that their right to their parents being involved in their decision-making process is being observed and followed.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a quick follow-up in terms of the whole thing of vaccination, and because of the pandemic, people say it's okay to give up these rights because we're trying to achieve that. So you are saying to us, wow, let's stand back and really examine it, because a minister who I'm associated with came up and said, do not use our children as experiments. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So what's your feeling on that?
The statement of do not use our children as experiment, I would say do not use anybody as experiment unless they can give their consent.
Right.
So the bottom line for me is this. Under no circumstances do you take away the freedom of any human being. Freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association, and most importantly, freedom of choice. And so any attempts to undermine those basic freedoms must be carefully responded to. And our leaders have failed to do that effectively in the last 2 years. They've actually pushed the boundaries as far as they can, and we the people have had to respond. Now, I am a little disappointed, to be honest with you. I thought more Jamaicans would have risen up.
What do you think accounts for that, though? Because I have a view of it, and what is your view of where the average Jamaican sits in their understanding of the importance of these rights, or even their knowledge of those rights?
I don't think they understand it very much. I think innately they have a feeling about it, and if you watch the chatter online, you'll see that they care about it. But I think there's a fear that has been instilled in them over the years that somehow a person becomes elected and they now have more rights and power than you.
They're more equal than you are.
So because they're elected, even if they only got 21% of the total possible electorate, they now have the right to override our views and our position. So there's a challenge there. I think also that our education system would have obviously failed our people, because the people do not understand rights in the way that they should understand it. They don't even understand governance in the way they should understand it. Okay. And because of that, they can be manipulated by politicians and brought to places where they should not.
Not only politicians, manipulated by leaders on a whole, even the church too.
Oh, absolutely. And
right.
You're saying that is highly respected.
No, man, but and that is the tension that a lot of us have to face, because I go back to the Genesis principle, which we got freedom of choice, decision. There may be consequences, but at least you have the freedom to choose. And even but I don't want to go off on a theological discussion, but that's true. But it's important that you have raised that in terms of for the public to understand and know. So a call online speaks to civics in school. What do you think about that in terms of it being standardized? So from you are 6 years old when you enter grade 1, it is in your understanding in regards to the rights and the responsibilities here. We always speaks about rights, but then we never emphasize, I think, enough about the responsibilities that you have. What's your own feeling on that?
Well, it's first of all, civics in school, it should be a must, understand it. Where I have a challenge though is who's civics? What version of
what is the content?
What's the content?
Okay.
Because that's where you have the problem.
Okay.
We have, for example, social studies in school, and some will say, well, that covers content of civics, for example, some of it. But what you want is to teach good governance.
Yes.
Because you can put the theory of civics in school, and the student would then leave with an idealized view of what obtains, which isn't true. For example, many Jamaicans don't understand the amount of power vested in the Prime Minister currently. By design, the power he has over the Senate, and he tried to even expand that power by having undated resignation letters signed.
Right.
And he also has power over the House of Representatives, because every one of them are hoping for a ministerial post and have to watch themselves. So if you need to get those nuanced part of the curriculum in, so the students can start thinking, not just having facts and dates and statements and positions, but understanding relationships. How does this affect that? The cause and effect relationship. So they can see now how the governance model is working to either help or undermine their personal rights and freedom, how it's helping or undermining their economy, how it's helping or undermining the development of their country. And if a student fully understands the current political model, they will see clearly why Jamaica is such a corrupt country, and how by changing that model we can reduce corruption and make Jamaica a much better country than it is now.
In fact, you have been doing some of that teaching, haven't you?
Yes, we have.
And so I want you to explain what you've been doing, because I did ask you before, how do you see the transition from what we have now to the better model or a more appropriate model, and this is in terms of constitutional reform and legal reform. So I want you to explain what you've been doing, and then I would like you to say how communities or associations or anyone who wants to have access to that information which coming out of your organization, how they can get you to come and do one of those sessions in their community.
Excellent.
So what have you been doing?
So the UIC has come to be known as two things. One is we're called by people the People's Party, and we're also called the Education Party.
Yes.
Because we spend our time educating. So instead of having these fiery rhetorical or rhetoric on the stage and exciting the people, we actually focus on educating the people. So we have walked them through, for example, the different spectrum of political designs. We have walked them through the history of Jamaica's politics and economics. We have tried to explain the connectivity between the different pieces. We do this in our online presentations that we do on UIC Liberty TV. We do this in our community meetings as we go across the country into different communities. And we have so far created now what is called the JUMP program, the Jamaica Upliftment Monetary Program, where we create in the communities community capital clubs. And in these clubs, we have weekly meetings where the members are taught things like financial literacy. They're taught the civics that you're talking about, and they're taught how to mobilize to get action in their community, how to be effective citizens in terms of representing their needs to their constituency leaders, whatever category they may be. And so we're working through that. In fact, we're just now launching this, and over the next several weeks you're going to see us in different communities, all 228 divisions across the country, all
talking
63.
about parish council?
Yes, parish councils.
And constituencies.
So 228 municipalities, divisions, and 63 constituencies. And by the end of the day, we would have developed groupings in all of these communities, not just for political mobilization, but most importantly for the knowledge base, getting the persons empowerment for them to understand the economics of their country, how to pool resources together, how to invest in small and micro enterprises in their communities, and how to use that collective power now to influence the outcome in terms of their political organization, in terms of the community development, in terms of connecting the different elements, the churches, the schools, the social clubs, and getting them actively engaged in building their community and seeing their community as an economic engine for their own personal development as well as the collective development of that community and by extension the country.
So does it sound like 60 and 60?
It is.
I know
we've been talking about personal responsibility, family, and then community. And I've been declaring that a tsunami is coming in our country that will shift. And that's what you need in order to shift what is happening.
And quite frankly, that program, which as you outline it, is a program that can run outside of elections.
Absolutely.
That is not about electioneering.
No.
And when I look at it too, a participant in such a program will be a blessing to both PNP and JLP.
Absolutely.
If they decide that they don't want to vote UIC and they get the learning nonetheless, they can be the catalyst for change.
Absolutely.
Are you prepared for that to be your greatest contribution to this country?
Well,
or you'd pack up your tent if you lose an election?
No, man, I came back here 10 years ago, 11 years now almost. So let's think about it.
So you've gone through two cycles.
In terms of packing up your tent. So I left
up your marbles or your ball. Because
I thought you were going to say your balls.
We're nomadic people, so it's tent.
Yes.
But I want to share this with you, just to put it in context here. So I left Jamaica when I was 23 years old.
Okay.
I came back in 2011, having done a marathon sprint in Canada. From going there and not having a job, working in a restaurant, a waiting table, mopping floors. Seriously, as an engineer, I left here as an engineer.
That's why I heard that and I was going to ask you about that. Yes.
I left here as an engineer. I was assistant manager for instrumentation at Clarendon Monimusk, right?
Right.
Very good job. My wife is the one who caused me to leave because she had left after we finished high school. She went to Canada. Her mother had filed for her. And so she became a part of the Canadian society. She got used to the wonderful health care, the clean environment, the safe environment, the upward mobility. So she said, listen, man, Joseph, if you come here knowing who you are,
you will be president in a day.
You are going to shoot to the stratosphere. And so I said, okay. And she said, listen, just go. And then what really moved me, though, to go and live.
Well, she wasn't your wife at the time.
No. Well, the decision was made at the wife at the time. The decision was made after. So here's what happened. So we decided to get married as we agreed, because I told her, we made a vow to each other. We decided that after college, we're going to get married. So that was our decision that we made. And as the universe would have it, immediately after college, about a year, we got married.
Okay.
And so the question now was, where are we going to live? So I said, we live in Jamaica. And she said, I understand, but I want you to come to Canada. And I said, why? She said, well, if you want me to have children, I have greater confidence in the healthcare system in Canada. I couldn't argue with that. You know why? I am not the one having the children.
Okay.
So I couldn't argue with that. So that's the basis on which I packed up and went to Canada. She also told me, though, that if I came to Canada, I'm going to do so well. That was also quite attractive.
That was a carrot.
So, yes, and then when I got there now, no jobs for 6 months. I was on a miserable experience. I finally had to take up, because I was either overqualified or underqualified. So I took a job in a restaurant, mopping the floors, waiting the table for $6.85 an hour. That was so... and by the way, that was... After that, we end up on welfare because she lost her job due to automation.
Okay. Yeah, right.
We talked about that. So she lost her job due to automation, and so we had to go on welfare, the most humiliating, degrading experience you could ever have. And so I was determined to fix that. And so quickly I rose through the ranks until I became VP of Finance for the school board and Director of Finance in government, operating a Canadian $2 billion budget and all of that. And then I said, honey, it's time. She said, I know. Because from day one when I came to Canada, I've been planning to return to Jamaica. So we came back in 2011. I don't know how we got to this part of the conversation, but that's how I came back.
We jumped to it. You were talking about jump.
The point was, will I pack up my marbles and go?
If you suffer a loss.
I've already suffered many losses coming back to Jamaica.
And I'm still here. You're still
and I'm going nowhere. I bought 36 acres of farmland. and I am farming and I am working. I'm an accountant by profession, CPA. I still provide CPA services, and I'm working to build Jamaica one way or another. I wished that the two existing parties would copy all of what I am proposing and do it in substance, because then I wouldn't have to do it. But I get the feeling that they're not going to do it based on their track record.
And why I took you there is because, some of us here have had brushes with the political arrangements of this country, and I for one came to the conclusion that you can be just as impactful working outside with the people, because if you change the minds of the people, then you influence the quality of the decisions they make, and then we don't have to be in politics. We can just work at the first stage, creating the good idea and watch it run its course. We got the signal for a break, so I think we need to take our break and then we return. Our guest is Mr. Joseph Patterson, visiting with us for the second time this week. Highly unusual even for us, but we're pleased to have him and to know that the conversation we began on Tuesday has ignited a lot of interest, and we're trying to bring it a little closer to fulfillment today. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Connection, and again to our listeners who are on air and online, I say a hearty good morning. Jasmine Powell is ready to vote for the UIC, by the way. Good morning to you. I'll just let Mr. Patterson know. Jasmine Powell says Mr. Patterson clearly knows and has experienced aspects of the problems and setbacks that a lot of people are now facing. He is the man with the solutions that Jamaica needs, and she's ready to vote. She said vote the UIC. And we've got some words of love and encouragement for you out of the UK as well. I'm trying to find it. It's way back in the chat. I saw it early. Good morning to Delroy Henry, who's giving a UK shout out to you and echoing some of the things. Earl Brown is saying good morning to you also, and Conrad in Toronto. Let's see. I gotta catch up with Truth to Power, but just letting you know that people are listening and are interested. I asked you before the break whether this initiative that you've launched, Jump,
I like it.
You like it?
whether it will continue beyond just electioneering. And of course, I said to you also during the break that many Jamaicans are so accustomed to benefits being tied up with vote and politics that even a good plan might founder because persons are mistrustful of the intent.
Yes.
How are you ensuring that persons understand that the door is open for them to participate in this community-based initiative, and that it does not really matter to you whether they end up voting UIC or they just take the Enlightenment to their party of choice? How
Well,
do you...
we, to be very honest, we would obviously like for persons to vote UIC.
Naturally,
However,
yes.
we're more interested in nation building. We're interested in empowering the individual, empowering the family, empowering the community. So the Jump program is really meant for Jamaica, regardless of how you may choose to vote. We want the Jump program to help to liberate our communities and our families at the grassroots level. It's a grassroots movement, a grassroots program. If I were to measure the success of the Jump program, it would be that we would have opened the minds and understanding of the Jamaican people, so much so that they love, desire, and work towards good governance and will accept nothing less. And that they will also see the benefit of collective economics, meaning working in a way where you trade value for value with each other and building an economy where we see the need to not only be consumers, but to be producers.
Now, in fact, you are fresh from an internal skirmish yourself.
Yes.
You have survived a challenge in your own party, which I dare say brings truth to what you're saying. If you teach your people to think well and to apply the right principles, they will make the right choice.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about that, because
Sure.
it seems that is a testimony to what it is you're
One
doing.
of the things I did not do when I created the UIC, I did not put any clause in our constitution, even though I was pushed to do so, to protect my position. I am just as vulnerable as any other office seeker within
Appointed,
the UIC.
yeah.
So you're not party leader for life.
No.
It's not the Gang of Five business.
Absolutely not. And I'm not the one, Dan, or anything like that. So the people in the party are encouraged and empowered to vote for their preference. Now, there are some who may have wanted to take over the leadership, but they weren't brave enough to face me up front.
Yeah.
And to say, I am going to put my name on the ballot and we're going to be able now to argue our position in a democratic, open and transparent way. So they chose to do it more indirect and then created a number of challenges. But in the end, the members, which is the most important, in the UIC, the members are the highest body in the organization.
So do you have like what, annual,
Those
it was
who
an annual
delegates-
general meeting
we have what is
Okay.
called an AMC, Annual Members Congress,
Right.
where all the members come together and it's one man, one vote, no matter who you are. So there's no delegate system. You can't buy off anybody. You can't do anything because it's always open to the members, even in the diaspora. So if you're in England or Canada or
and
US,
you're a
you
member
can-
of
and
the
a member,
UIC, you can vote.
So whenever my presidency comes up, or any other office comes up for the election, you have no idea how it's going to go because you can't control any delegates. You're open to the people, all the people. And that's what we want to build Jamaica as well. We want to get rid of the opportunities for corruptions even in the electoral process.
Electioneering.
Yes. Yes, so we're very open. So the JUMP program, back to the JUMP program, if we're successful,
So, did you survive by a wide majority or a slim majority?
I got 100% of the votes.
Even amongst the challengers?
What happened is the challengers did not show up.
I see.
They don't show up.
Do you suspect sabotage?
They tried, but they did not show up. And I understand why. You see, truth is a powerful thing if it can be effectively communicated. And I don't know how
Truth sets free.
it sets you free.
Yeah.
Now, I am not the best of communicators, but I felt that on that particular occasion, because the attempt was so fraudulent, the truth was powerfully stated, and the members responded in kind. And I was elected 100% of the votes, and all those who I supported in candidacy, which by the way I do things in the UIC, I focus on competences, not on personalities or personal friends. So if you're a competent performer in the party, the movement, I am going to clearly state that so that everybody knows where I sit on each of the different offices, so they can vote with a clear understanding of what my views are on the performance of the individuals. And I ask them to do the same of me, to publicly state what they view my performance in the different areas, from leading to organizing to directing and all of that. And I have no doubt that the members will always choose the best person for the job if we clearly communicate what the issues are and how we're dealing with them.
And this happens every year?
Every 2 years we have elections for my position and the other core NEC members, but every year we have an AMC where we
Okay.
vote on issues. And
Right.
Sorry, AMC.
AMC.
The NEC is the National Executive Council.
Nobody owns that name.
Yeah, nobody owns that.
Nobody owns
Yes,
that name.
no.
But let me throw a question to
Sure,
you, even
yes.
as you've gone through that.
Yes.
I believe in seasons.
Okay.
So you're
Nature gives us seasons.
Yes, nature gives us season, but even in terms of leadership,
Okay.
are you party leader for life?
No, I'm not. No.
Are you don't? Because some people hold to that.
Do you mean,
belief?
what you're asking is, are there terms? Do you become ineligible
we
after a
don't have
cycle?
term limits in the UIC. What we have is members limits. The members decide your term. So we don't set I say, okay, you only serve for 2 years. I've been the president, I'm the founder, and I've been the president ever since. I've been re-elected now 4 times. And
4
it's
to 8.
Yeah, and it's the members who choose to do that. The moment they see it fit to place somebody else in the presidency, that's when it changes. And if I cannot perform at the level that meets their expectations, then it will change.
That's a bit idealistic.
It could
Well,
be.
it's been happening. It's happened 4 times already. Let's see if it holds for a 5th.
For a 5th term.
Absolutely, yes. Take Lee Kuan Yew, for example, in Singapore. I mean, I know people suggest that Singapore is a bit of they think it's a form of a dictatorship. But he has been elected 30 years straight. Why was he elected, though? Because he made Singapore a powerful country, taking it from nothing, fragmented, poor, ragged.
Yeah, but I think even as we talk about innovation and freedom and individual choices and so on, there is the fact that people will continue to do. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. People will continue in the same vein unless they are stirred out of their comfort zone. And there may be someone who could have transformed Singapore to the nth degree if Lee Kuan Yew just
No, he's
made
a
himself
strong
unavailable.
Sorry?
Did he use strong arm tactics?
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
No, from my assessment of Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, he didn't. But your point is taken that sometime you need to have maybe in your case you're thinking it's a check on how long you can serve. But the
Fresh
flip side-
blood, let your family get you back
idea
flip
before
side
you
is
die.
also true. Sometimes
Yes,
it
but-
can disrupt a very good thing.
Yes, that is
Now,
what makes
in the case
the
of
human
Singapore-
existence interesting.
Yeah, well, I am more interested in good governance than interesting. So, Lee Kuan Yew gave Singapore good governance, And Singapore is now the envy of the world. And I'm sure all of us in Jamaica here would have preferred if we had, let's say, for example, we had a leader like Lee Kuan Yew, who was able to marshal all the forces in the country to give us a nation which is safe, clean, and orderly, and where everybody can earn, live, and retire with dignity. We would all prefer that over simply having a term limit. Now, mark here, I'm not against term limit. The current Prime Minister said that if elected, he would give us that within the first 100 days. It's now been quite many more days than the first 100 days in 2016. So if you make a promise, you should keep it. I am not promising anybody term limits. What I'm promising Jamaicans is good governance. And I'm prepared personally to work as long and as hard, as committed as Lee Kuan Yew was for Singapore. I am prepared to be for Jamaica, so that we can have the kind of Jamaica we want. Not the optics of good governance, but the reality of good governance.
And I'm glad that you raised that point, the optics versus reality.
Yes.
Expand a little bit on that for me.
Sure. For example, Jamaica is known, and it is stated that we have this great democracy. And we say this with pride. But if you look at the reality of Jamaica's democracy, Jamaica in its early infancy, working with the colonial masters and working with the elites, got rid of the first political party we had, which was Marcus Garvey. If we had a true democracy, we might have had the Marcus Garvey party today. But because it wasn't really true, in 1944 we claimed we got the right to vote, one man, one vote. But did we really get the right to vote, or did we simply have a situation where the powers that be gave us what appeared to be options while they controlled the options we would have? And so from then until now, we have had two options, which has been underwritten by a segment of our society, the elites of our society. I call them the PSOJ oligarch. So they gave this option a veneer of democracy, but not true democracy, because the Jamaican people have not had a chance to vote for a third party simply because the powers that be have controlled the environment such that they can't really survive. Now the UIC is trying to buck that trend. We're fighting very hard to overcome the obstacles, and we're breaking through. But the more we break through is the more they try to close the door, which is understandable given what we have. But what I'm saying is, we don't have a true democracy because, for example, how educated are our people? In a true democracy, people are highly educated. In Canada, just one point, in Canada, for example, they have about 5 political parties or so. And every election cycle, there's a chance of an upset. We had a big upset once when the NDP, a fringe party at the time, became opposition. Why? Because the population is so educated that they can really reason and think through. You can't buy votes in Canada. You understand? Because the population is so developed that it's hard for you to just buy their votes. You can't trick them either with easy statements and whatever, because they can think at that level. In Jamaica, what we have done is to dumb down the population. We have impoverished the populations, and then we've been able to control them so that a small segment does go out to vote, but they're tribalistic, they're easily bought, and they get to manipulate the situation into getting what they want. The UIC says no, let's have real democracy with an educated population, with an economy that is grassroots, bottom up rather than top down, and give people the power that they need to be able to participate in choosing who and what they're governed by.
I want to introduce a sort of a fresh perspective on the issue of democracy, because you are offering a system of democracy as the decision-making methodology behind your government.
Yes.
So we can't bash democracy because it works depending on who is using it. I've raised that point because some have called us a failed democracy, some have said it's not a true democracy, and many conversations take place on the issue of democracy as though democracy is the fourth person at the table.
Yes.
When really it is a system that we choose to use, and we stand behind it, Percy and I, from a scriptural perspective, stand behind democracy as what works in the government of men. our true government is a theocracy. So, yes, that is our true government. But while we are here, we believe in educating people and getting consent and so on. So we don't bash democracy in and of itself. We look at who's using it and why. For your consideration, democracy as it operates in Jamaica is delivering sterling, remarkable results to the people who are using it.
Not in my opinion, no.
We are not the people using it.
Yes.
The voters are not the people using it.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. No, okay.
That is why I've introduced
So
it.
the people using it.
The people who are using it are benefiting, and that is why.
No, I get you.
That is why they say we are a true democracy.
Absolutely,
because
absolutely.
they are using it to
Yes.
full effect.
Yep, it's working for them.
Yes.
Yes, it's working
Yeah.
for them. It is working in a powerful way.
Absolutely.
For them. Yes.
You now are introducing a different way to utilize it.
Yes, yes.
And that's what I'm interested in.
Sure.
Because you are educating.
Yes.
And I like Jump.
Yes.
Now I need to have an understanding now of how you are selecting your main actors.
Okay.
Meaning they have the cabinet and the ministers, and you have a way now of selecting your main actors so that the way you use democracy will produce a more beneficial result to the voters.
Right.
How are you addressing that?
Sure. Well, the first thing we need to understand is whether or not we are a democracy, whether we want a democracy or we want something else. The UIC wants us to look at Jamaica from the perspective of a republic. We want to define republic for you. A republic is a state which respects the sovereignty of the individual. And once you respect the sovereignty of the individual, you build the rest of your framework around that. So you want to design it so that the government protects the life, liberty, and property rights of every citizen equally, and the Constitution protects the people from the government. That's number one. Then now you go into the mechanics of it. The mechanics now must be such that you have proper checks and balances. In our system, you will have an elected Senate, which is separate from the House of Representatives, which is also elected. To be elected in the House, you must live where you're running. So you cannot come from outside or be parachuted in. The Senate now is on a parish level. So every senator is representing a parish. So 14 instead of 21. In the current system, senators are appointed by the heads of the parties that lead the government. Political appointments, which makes them weak and ineffective.
And vulnerable.
In the UIC system, it's the people who elect the senators. So now you have two houses which are fully elected, but they have different perspectives. One is at the community level and one is at the parish level, and they're elected separately. Now your executive leadership, your president is elected directly by the people nationally. So he or she must have a national perspective and pay attention to the overall development of the country, balancing all the different forces. Your vice presidents now, one for each county, so they have a regional perspective, which embraces a number of parishes, right? Jamaica has Cornwall, Middlesex, and Surrey. So 3 VPs. Very important to have 3 VPs because you might have a VP wanting to get rid of the president knowing that they will step in line. But having 3 creates a bit of a balance because neither of them will know who will be selected if the president is no longer able to serve. Within this cluster of the new executive, the president and the 3 vice presidents, together with the president's running mates, a general secretary who is going to be chief of staff, and the treasury secretary who's going to be finance minister, which is his core. So 3 of them forms the core, together with the 3 VPs. They now nominate subject matter experts to reside in all the other ministries. This is important, subject matter experts, Jamaicans from anywhere in the world who have the skills we need. But you don't get to just appoint them, you nominate. The Senate then publicly vets them to see if they really can fit the bill, and the House of Representatives votes to put them in or out. This creates a kind of checks and balances like never before seen in any country based on what we're doing. The big clincher though is how you finance the campaign process. Ours will be a 100% publicly funded finance structure where you finance the candidate by giving all candidates the same platform.
amount of,
not the money, the
platform.
same platform. so that their constituents can hear them, whether them rich or whether them poor. So the rich man now have no advantage and the poor man is not disadvantaged. What matters is the content that they bring forward and the content of their character. So now you've taken big money out of the equation and you have put now the politics back in the hands of the people. You have set up the proper checks and balances and you have now created a true republic with a constitution which protects their rights under all circumstances, regardless of the leader that you put in charge.
All right, I think you deserve a break after that one. And it's also time for the station break. So we're going to shift gears a bit because we now have
my beautiful friend from a very long time.
She's not hearing you.
She's not hearing me at all.
She's not even looking at you.
Hello?
Well, we're going to welcome Winsome Callum to the table in a short while when we return from the break. And this is big business because how we treat with energy, the cost of it, the management of it, and our knowledge with Mr. Patterson has been speaking a lot about the need for consumers, for voters, for citizens to be better educated on all aspects of their affairs so we can make the right choices. And thankfully we have Winsome who's going to join us after the break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. This is the Morning Connection. Good morning and welcome back to the Morning Connection. Your hosts Minette and Percy are coming to you live from the Ligani Club in the heart of New Kingston. And boy, is the city warming up. It's just as well because we have a very hot lady with us here, the energy person from Jamaica Public Service Company. Our guest whom you have heard on this program at least 3 times already. This is either the 4th or the 3rd time, is also a friend. It's just amazing that we are actually sitting within a few feet of each other. Winsome and I both studied at Brownstown Community College some time ago.
You didn't know that?
Did you know that?
Of course, we went to school at the same time.
And we were in high
You went to
school.
St. Hilda's?
Yes.
Breadfruit.
This is St. Hilda's young girl
Young
too.
girl.
Yes, the tradition continues. And then to hear that Pastor Percival, when she, I mean, sometimes we have a little competition about who know who better.
That's it.
When I says my friend, him says my friend too, and it's my friend first.
Campus
So.
and church.
Yeah, so I mean it's quite the family moment here, and I'm grateful for that, because when it comes to the business of electricity, affording it, managing it, understanding what's going on, people can lose friends. I hear some awful things said, and so it's really been good that we have the kind of relationship that allows us to learn from you and to pull from you as best we can. We're gonna start running because Percival and I showed ourselves to be very poor students by not remembering with accuracy how long the co-pay system will
it
run.
started?
Is it 4 months, 3 months?
It's 4 months. It's actually 4 months.
Minute gets it. But the
I said,
truth
was it 4
is,
months?
but
So
the,
when it start, isn't it May?
We start seeing it in your bill.
but it is for April.
But what you see in May is applied to your usage in April.
April.
So
Okay.
it's shown retroactive.
All right, so you get
April,
half
May, June.
point.
July.
So you get half
So,
point.
Hey,
we keeping track?
so it will be on your bills if you qualify from May to August, May, June, July, August on the bill.
Yeah, but it
Remember,
is
it
for
started,
April, May, June, July
Right.
usage.
yes, the usage. So
The
what you
seat on
see,
the bill is in our
So if you
So how it
squish us
works is
together,
this.
we had it right. If you squish us together, to try it as
that
well.
works. That's what partnership is.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
yes. So please just outline for us what customers should be looking for and what do they do if they don't see what they expect.
Okay. So first of all, you don't have to apply for it. That's a question we've been getting at our offices. How do you qualify? You qualify simply by staying within 200 kilowatt hours usage. If you're a postpaid customer, just to make sure that you use 200 and under. We had a customer this week who used 204. She was so distressed because once you go over 200,
You just drop off for the system
it's
don't see you.
automatic, right?
Yes.
It's automatically disqualifying you once you go over 200.
So you see, persons need to understand algorithms and how the digital world works. It is fixed. If you go 200 and little bit,
You go
it's,
200.1.
there's no discretion. It's not personal.
So that's for postpaid customers. Once you are under 200 and under, you will get this 20% of your bill. So we're talking just now about when it started. So customers are now seeing that 20% of the bill based on the usage in
April.
So they would not have seen it in April because it started in April. They're seeing it now in May based on usage in April.
So it
There's a
tracks
special line
usage,
item, absolutely.
not
There's
time
a
frame.
line item on the bill that says government's co-pay subsidy, and that's where you see how much you're getting off your bill.
May I ask you a very Jamaican question? Can I start a prepaid account just so I can benefit from the subsidy?
Well, you can, because it's not based on usage when you have prepaid. For prepaid, all residential customers, remember this is about residential, not business customers. So once you have a prepaid account and you're a residential customer, you will get
There's a
the
credit.
subsidy.
It's all like a
There
credit.
is that $3,000 credit on your account. Now, if you have a smart meter, this is just automatically paid to your account, $3,000, regardless of your usage. The only criteria is that you must have topped up your account in the last 3 months, even one time.
So it shows your occurrence.
So it shows that you're an active user.
Oh,
Now,
so you can't start now.
in the last 3 months, you can.
You can.
So
No,
you
but-
can start now to benefit next month.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Oh, no, I'm
So
understand.
how quickly do you process applications?
Well, it depends on where you're at, what background work needs to be done in terms of the infrastructure. But it's fairly simple, maybe within 2 weeks, depending on where you're at.
So actually, and I know we're veering slightly off script.
Just before you go, for prepaid customers
Yes.
who do not have a smart meter, you will get the credit on your phone. You get a text message telling you, giving you the voucher number for you to enter.
And you...
Yes, and you simply enter it. It's a simple process, and persons with prepaid know how to do it. You get the voucher number, you enter it. There's a keypad. You enter it, and you top up your meter.
Oh, you enter it on the meter.
Yes.
I see.
Right.
So we're gonna repeat. We're gonna go through that again. So to make sure that persons have it, they need to know what to do. So the credit isn't sitting in the voucher on the phone, and the light gone.
You get the text message.
Yes.
You with the voucher number, you simply take that voucher number and enter it into that keypad on the meter.
On the meter.
That's a smart meter.
That's for the non-smart meter customers. They have a special prepaid meter with a keypad. Some have the CDU, we call it customer display unit, and you actually can enter the voucher number. So let's make sure everybody understands. Once you are a postpaid customer, you qualify if your usage is under 200 kilowatt hours. And that's shown as a line item on your bill. As a prepaid customer, all you need to do is just top up your account at least once in the last 3
Any
months.
amount,
Any
not
amount.
$200, $500.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
What the reason for this requirement is to ensure that these are
Active
account
accounts.
holders, because some people are not really active.
Yes.
But we give them 3 months because not everybody tops up every month, and if you topped up in March, it would be unfair for us to disqualify you from this. So once you've topped up, you qualify. Right. Last 3 months. Thank you. And you get this automatically on your meter if you have a smart meter. But not everybody has a smart meter, so those who don't will get it as a text message on their phones.
The message comes from the government, or it comes from JPS?
It's JPS. That's
okay.
Administering
it. Yes.
So if we do not have your mobile number, then you won't get it. So
I would have eaten your supper after $3,000.
Begging you all to
update
your accounts with your current mobile number. We need your cell numbers, and we need your email addresses, because that's a backup.
That's a backup. Okay. So do you understand now that we are administering a public service or resource completely through technology? Is there room for me to walk up to the window and get my voucher?
No.
Wow.
They might force way. One way.
Wow.
Everybody.
No, well, we have been impressing the need for digital literacy on the population as a whole.
Yeah.
But literacy is meaningless without the tools. So now you need to have a phone. You need to have internet access if you don't have a phone. And Jamaicans just need to be aware that these are not this is not a discretionary, or this is necessary in order for you to participate in certain things. I'm sensing here too that how this subsidy is administered, and I do not believe it is the last such subsidy, because we're on a path forward where we have to create baskets to catch people who are falling. So the way this is being administered, it means persons who do not have a legitimate account for electricity need to get on board. Are you finding it useful in any way? Because this looks like an important driver to get persons with small households, modest consumption, to stop with whatever it is you're doing, and establish even a prepaid account.
Well, that's what we are encouraging them to do, to get a prepaid account, because we have seen people who switch from postpaid to prepaid. They save a lot of money.
I would like to try.
You're a lot more conscious about your usage.
Yes.
So you top up $500, you get a sense of what that $500
what it does
will cover, how long it will last, and so you keep your usage in.
Wow.
So are you making it easy for persons to switch between postpaid and prepaid?
Yes. Once you have a smart meter, you don't even need a meter change. Submit your application, use the mobile app, submit your application, and that is processed within, again, maybe 10 working days.
And there are no limits in terms of cash limits. I can be prepaid for 100,000, prepaid for 10,000.
Once you are a residential customer, yes, it's very easy. And we also do prepaid for small commercial customers. We call them rate 10 customers.
Yes.
So like the barber shop and especially for landlords, we encourage you to go prepaid.
Yes.
Why? Because we've had many
When the tenant goes,
cases of the tenant leaving with leave a high
a high bill, and
the
yeah,
landlord has the account in his name or her name, and he has
to clear it in order to get a new tenant
Absolutely.
installed.
So we encourage
Wow.
you landlords and landladies, put a prepaid meter on your rented space.
And is there a cost to transitioning from
There's no
post to prepaid? Do we get a gift when we transition? Like if there's no cost, there should be a
That's a
gift.
great idea. But let me tell you about this campaign that we have now to get persons to sign up for prepaid. It's a spin to win. So if you convert to or become a new prepaid customer, you will qualify to win monthly prizes and also $2 million at the end of the year. Yes, one person will win $2 million at the end of the year if you become a prepaid customer. And
No.
this is residential customers.
I'm in. I think you could tell that I'm interested.
It's a promotion that we're running right now. It just started a couple of weeks ago, and the persons are signing up because there is an opportunity. Every month you get to win a weekend for two, or you can get a shopping spree, supermarket shopping spree, which I
So-
know a lot of people want right now. So there is a reward for going prepaid.
So, can I tell you, Winsome and I have not spoken.
There you go.
Because when I asked, is there a prize? It's a beautiful campaign, and I think at first thinking about prepaid, you're thinking it's like a low budget or and I'm listening to you, I understand that it has nothing at all to do with
It
is about
is
managing
about-
consumption
absolutely.
and your expenditure.
Yeah. So and one of the things that we have as a company, what JPS has decided to do is that there is no point in people using the electricity and not being able to pay for it. It's not in our interest, and it's not in their interest, because they lose the power. They hate JPS. We don't want that. So our responsibility is really to help you to manage
Manage
Live
what
within
you
your
spend.
means, if
Okay.
you want to put it like that.
All right. So, sorry. Finish your thought
So
before
there are
mine.
a couple of things that we are doing to help you to manage so that you can use what you can afford to pay for. So one is the prepaid. You have $5,000 for the month. This is
It will not change.
So, and you and your family will live within it. You can watch. You can know how much credit you have left. You can know. All right. So maybe I need to not use the AC for 8 hours. Maybe I need to use it for 4 instead, and in order to stay within my budget.
Within the budget.
So there's also the mobile app that you can use to set your budget, and you get an alert. I got an alert because I set my budget using the mobile app, and it tells me that I am now over my budget. So I need to look and see what is happening in my house, why am I over my budget, and cut back where necessary. But at least I am aware.
Yes. So I have.
Can you top up if it says you're over your budget?
Prepaid.
Well, hers is not a prepaid,
Postpaid,
yeah.
all I can do is either move money from the supermarket to the light bill or something else.
Precisely.
And cut back so
Yes.
that I can still live within my budget.
Yeah, love it, because now you've not only you've touched on our digital literacy, and you've touched on our financial literacy, because this awareness that you really have cut up a dollar and you have limits to what you can do each day, and if you breach it here, you have to correct it over there. We are holding the government to that kind of sensibility, but we're not practicing it in our personal lives with as much discipline as we should. You stirred up my mind on an issue. First is, to that customer who missed the subsidy by going to 204 when you want it to be, what would be your first advice, or how would you say you can address this?
Well, for this customer, I believe this customer is very, very close to the 200, so it should not be difficult for her. to go under 200. Maybe for somebody who is using 350 kilowatt hours, it might be harder. But for this customer, all she has to do is just look at what's happening in my house. I mean, everybody should do that. I think she is going to be a lot more deliberate, because having worked with her, explained to her what the different appliances use, how much they burn, and she's now looking at how I use this. I am not going over that 200 because I want that subsidy.
Yes.
I mean,
So there's an incentive for her to
absolutely, and there's an incentive for all of us, all of us. So if your bill comes up to about $14,000, which is what it could become if you're using 200 or a little bit over $14,000, to get $2,000 off that is significant. You can put that 2,000 towards something else. So what we say to customers, if you really want to stay within the 200, there are a number of things you can do. It's all about looking at how you're using energy. Where are you wasting it? And I keep saying, we don't ask people to compromise their quality of life. Just look at where you're wasting.
Okay.
Because
There's always waste, is what you're
Absolutely.
saying.
No, I know that because it's getting so hot, I need AC. And I'm not going to apologize for that. So what I do is look at what I'm doing elsewhere. But with the use of the AC, we can go on and make sure I get somebody to come in and service it. Because with the dirty filter, it uses more electricity. So when he took the filter out, I wasn't too embarrassed because it wasn't that dirty. But what he did, he showed me some pictures of other ACs that he had cleaned in the last week, and it's frightening how filthy they are. And I'm sure these people don't realize that the filter is so dirty that it's not working effectively. Plus, you're using so much more electricity, and it costs JPS. When is the filter you need to clean? So I'm insisting, just look at how you're using your equipment and appliances, and make sure that you're servicing them. So the AC servicing is absolutely important. What the maintenance guy said to me, I asked him how frequently I need to do this. He said for households, it might be, if you use it regularly, you need to do it twice a year. Clean it twice a year. For persons who have more people in their households, more movement, it might be more frequent. You might need to do it more frequently. For business places, if you have a business place and you're in the AC all the time, you clean it every month. Some places say 2 to 4 weeks you change the filter, because the filter is really not that difficult.
Yes,
you
and
can take it out, wash it,
yes,
and put it back, or you have the disposable filters. You can just replace them. So that's one thing with the AC. Another thing that you need to look at, and as we said to this lady, is your refrigerator. If you look on your bill, the refrigerator is the biggest user. But you have to have it. I mean, you need the thing. So, two things: make sure it's properly maintained. You see that rubber on the seal, the gas
by the door, on the door, yes.
That needs to be cleaned regularly, because sometimes
things
things get stuck on it, like fruit juice, dry up and thing, and the door not closing properly. If it's not closing properly, then
leakage,
air is coming out. The fridge has to work harder, and you get a higher bill, and you cost JPS. We don't want that.
I noticed so many things end with and you cost JPS.
That is
it is true. It is true.
It's a shared responsibility. JPS, has our role to play, and we as consumers also have our role to play. We have to take ownership for what we're doing, what we have control over. So make sure the rubber gasket is cleaned. Make sure it is replaced. If you put a $100 bill between the door, close it, and the $100 bill slide out, then
problem.
Air is coming out also. So that's one way.
A lot of those double door ones that close in on itself.
Yes, we can still do the dollar test.
Yeah.
Putting the paper money.
The one side at a time.
Yes. But you do lose air if the rubber gasket, the rubber seal is not working properly. And the coil. Before we get to ironing, the coil. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the fridge.
Oh yes, with the thing at the back.
Right.
You could
put clothes on it.
So yes.
I remember that.
Yes.
The woman have to wash your clothes.
Put socks on it.
Right, so you get it in the morning. So we don't have many refrigerators like that anymore, but the coil is important. The coil is still there, but it's usually at the bottom of the fridge and nicely
hidden.
closed.
Yes.
But it still needs to be cleaned, because when dust settles on that, collects on that, it makes the refrigerator work much harder. And so it's not difficult to clean, just if you look closely on the fridge, you see a little door, you pull it out and you see the dust, you use a little brush and clean it out,
you're not going to get electrocuted
that
and
makes
die.
your fridge a lot more efficient. Last thing on the fridge, you see, we get the complaint every day that nobody's at home. Nobody's at
Nobody's
home.
opening it.
So like how it gets
Yes.
hot now, and you lock up your house tight because you don't want anybody to go in there, and the fridge right up against the wall. The poor fridge is working so much harder in that heat. So yes, you have to lock up your house, but if you can leave a little crack so that the air
fresh
circulates,
air.
but also move the fridge away from the wall a little bit so the air circulates. And if the fridge is beside the stove, the fridge has to work so much harder. So look at the heat around your refrigerator, because sometimes just by locking up the house so tight and having the stove right there, you're using way more than you need to, because the fridge is working so much harder.
Some people will need a new kitchen
Well,
because this space too small
you start where you're at.
to achieve.
That's serious thing.
And that is
You start where you're at.
yes.
Start where you're
All right,
at. Just
the
open the
resource, this information you're sharing, which I think if someone called JPS, do you have like a resource desk that would walk persons
That's
through
on
some
your
of this
website,
until they are?
Yes, the
Yeah.
information is on our website, and
But we like talk. We want to
Yes.
say JPS.
No,
We want to reduce the
I-
bill.
That's the thing. I put this is $1 million idea. Can't pay us for it
okay, then.
afterwards.
He has priced it.
Let you go on the website and it's audio, because a lot of us
It is
record
a
what you have
$1
said.
idea.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
you're right.
That's it.
Okay,
Yes.
that is definitely something that we can
Yeah,
look at
because
very
most
soon,
people
because
would
don't
rather
read.
listen.
Yes, we don't want to read. Yes.
Yes, yes.
But more than anything else, we want to be interactive, though. That's what I was thinking of.
That's
Yes.
what we're finding. So
Yeah.
yes, all of our team members they know, they are aware, and they're equipped with the information to share
Yeah.
when persons call. You'll find though that they're never able to give you all the information you need in one conversation.
So if you're
So they
pre-recording.
might give you a little bit and say
Yeah.
for more information,
Do
check
X,
the website,
yes.
or go on
Where
our-
person's $1 million idea clicks in,
Yes.
and you get
So
an
you can
audio,
listen.
a video or
I
something
definitely will explore
yes.
that. Not
Part
promise
of-
to the $1 million
Yeah,
payment.
but on this program we give
You give me advice.
ideas because we want us to be better
Yes,
as a country.
yes. We definitely, exactly.
But
And
if we are conserving, that means our energy import bill goes down significantly.
exactly, it's not just at the personal level,
No.
it's also at the national level that we benefit.
Yeah. So, anything else in?
Well,
so we've spoken about the
just-
prepay and we've spoken about the tips. Anything else you want to share with us? Because always when you come, it is very enlightening.
Well, she have me thinking I can't even remember any question to ask her.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about
Oh, the iron. Don't forget the iron.
Principle of conservation and just using less electricity. They're basic principles. First of all, you ask yourself if I must plug this in or I must turn it off, or I must turn it on. Because if the answer is no, you know that it would have been wasted if you had plugged it in. So just ask yourself:
Well,
do I have to do this? Then the next
Thanks to you,
question
I
is-
now turn off the fan every time I leave the house.
Thank you.
I go home, it's a little
Relax.
hot and stuffy, but I said
Well,
it's an important
It is,
act
and
in
just
conservation.
open up,
Yeah.
because the fan does not need to be on all day.
Yeah.
It is sending up your bill, and you
Yeah,
don't need that.
yeah. So I am expecting to see a dip in my bill.
Well, what I want you to do, and I need you to tell me this, if you see a dip in your usage, because what sometimes we don't realize
True,
that
the bill might be,
usage will go down, but
and the bill
the
gone
same.
up. Or it gone up?
Even gone up, and we can talk about. We
Yes.
have spoken about why that
Yes,
happens.
yes.
But with regards to energy usage, make sure that you're using what you need. And if there's an alternative, look at the alternative. For example, I don't need to keep the AC on for the whole night. I can turn it off at about 12
Put the
o'clock
timer on,
and let the
yes,
fan,
yes.
and let the fan continue. The
Continue,
room is already
right.
cool, so the fan can do the rest of the work.
So it means being knowledgeable about your appliances too, because they all have a timer and some
They do.
things that we only use the on and off.
Yes.
And maybe we change the temperature.
One caution though, persons are anxiously unplugging things and replugging and so on. Don't do that. That is bad for the appliance or the equipment. Put it in a strip. There's a strip you can plug in your things
And then turn on or off.
You just flick that. Don't plug them out because you damage your cord and it's not good for the appliance.
For the
So
appliance.
make sure that.
Okay. All right, we're coming up to the break, but I do have to ask her one question. We have 2 minutes. I've always been not confused, but I've always wondered why an energy company that makes money based on the more people use, the more assuming they actually pay, why you promote conservation, and what is the, what is your kind of long-term view of meeting the energy needs of customers, staying whole, shareholder value, but also being mindful of the environmental importance of conservation?
There are a couple of reasons. First of all, as I said earlier, it's not in our interest to have people use electricity and can't pay for it. It just doesn't make sense. So we need you to be able to afford. When you look at the cost of living in Jamaica, it is relatively low compared to other countries. And so the average usage of a household in Jamaica is about 165 kilowatt hours. In Barbados is 500. In the Bahamas it's over 600, and that's because they can afford it. The quality of life, standard of living, income is better, greater than it is in Jamaica. So we start there. We recognize that it's difficult for people to afford it, and we have to work with them. It's a partnership. At the end of the day, it is not in anybody's interest for us to waste. Waste is not good for anybody, whether you're at the individual level,
Whether you're rich or you're poor.
Exactly, that makes sense.
Yes.
And so as a country, we can save valuable US dollars by not importing all the fuel that we now import.
All right.
It doesn't. It's not in anybody's interest. So nationally, conservation is important. And at the end of the day, we have to take care of the environment. And we find that the more electricity you use, the more fossil fuels you're using. Until we get to a place where we're going full renewables, we have to conserve the environment when we burn electricity to reduce the greenhouse emissions, gas emissions and all of that. So everybody benefits when we conserve. And as a responsible company that serves the public, we have to be part of that responsible management of resources.
So then how do you make your money?
All right, so you know that JPS's profit is not an arbitrarily set profit. We are regulated by the Office of Utilities Regulation. They set the rates and they also set what they call an allowed rate of return. It is not a guaranteed rate of return ever. It's allowed. So what JPS has to do is to manage ourselves, and the OUR holds us accountable to be more and more efficient, because we have to spend on the grid, we have to spend on the power plants, we have to spend on fuel. We never, budget for oil price to go X, Y, and Z. So nobody does. So what we have to do is to make sure that we manage as efficiently as possible, and we make money from being more efficient. So when we burn the fuel efficiently to make electricity, the more efficient we are, the better it is. Yes, the better it is for us, because we don't have a guaranteed rate of return.
Okay.
All right, I think
She goes
yes,
and leaves
that's
us now. Yes.
all right. Well, then let's say our thank yous, Miss Winsome. Thank you so
You're very
much.
welcome.
Pleasure.
Always a pleasure, and I hope
Always
it's better for you to be here than on the phone.
Let's see. Yes, it really was a
Yes.
pleasure being here. It
Yeah.
was much
All
better.
right. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day, and thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Connection. We are getting into we're kind of getting into the last hour of the morning, and we were just so enlightened by the contribution from Miss Callum, who, I tell you, I don't think there's anything about JPS, anything important about JPS that she doesn't have some knowledge and information on. So, I mean, right away, I'm thinking, I can switch to being a prepaid customer, set my limit, and then let the family fall in line with the consumption. That's great power to have. So this is now, we're going to continue in the vein where we left Mr. Patterson. He had outlined the Republic on paper, but all of the good plans that we lay on paper can come to naught once man starts to move pieces around, or you know how it is. You have your beautiful design, and when it goes live on the street, it takes on a whole different shape and color. And for us as citizens, the great fear is out of control corruption or abuse of power and so on and so forth. We've just gone through on the Morning Connection. We did a review of the legislative framework and the main piece for whistleblowing, which is, of course, the protected disclosure of information. We also looked at the Integrity Commission. There are some anti-corruption agencies already in the field. What would you keep? What would you throw out? How would you seek to contain abuse of power in your republic?
Absolutely. I think we have made the situation more complex than we need it to be. So we have created all of these commissions and so on. If you think about it, what are the real issues in life? It's about anybody using force or fraud to get their way. That's the two things. You either use force, which is a form of theft or violence, or fraud to get your way. Why don't we make sure that is encoded in law right across the board? Teach our children. Hold our police officers or nurses or teachers or politicians, our citizens accountable. You are not allowed to engage in force or fraud to have your way. So no special treatment, whether you're a politician or you are a street vendor. If you use force or fraud to try to achieve your objective, you're offside and you're criminalized as a result of that, and you're charged. Or we can set up more and more commissions, hire more people, create more offices, use more AC, produce more paper, and at the end of the day, we're still where we started.
So I do understand the principle and the theory of it, but you would no doubt have had to look at what does the public sector look like in terms of the 70 agencies under one ministry and so on and so forth. Are you paying attention to what I would keep, what I would not go? And you don't have to name specifics, if you can give me the broad outline, I would.
But just before we go along that, based on what you have said, if the Republic becomes a reality in terms of he becomes the next Prime Minister, would if people are losing work?
That is if he's doing what I'm saying.
Yes, you don't think it like that?
I wouldn't look at it that way.
Okay.
Here's how we should look at it. If you're running a company, right, what you want is a company that is well governed. It has good governance. It employs people properly. It terminates people properly. It trains people properly. It gives people opportunity to upgrade and to move into different areas and so on. The same applies to a country. You have good laws, good regulations, good structures, and then you hire people who fit into that and people who don't. It's a good idea for many more of us to be in the private sector producing than for us to simply be in a public space occupying.
Okay, but
right?
So
let's
so let us. But based on what you have said, if we were to go,
if we go to the Republic, it's going to be a smaller government.
It's going to be smaller.
So it's going to cost us less and gets us more, because the rules are going to be clear. We're not going to have so many tiers for you to go through and so many loopholes for you to go around and so many public bodies for us to administer, because the rules are going to be very clear. It's going to be very narrow and very focused. What you have is, when you have too many gatekeepers, you're inhibiting the economy from working well, and you're giving some people an advantage over others because of either their gatekeeper position or their connection to the gatekeeper.
Okay.
So we have to reduce the number of gatekeeping roles. Reduce the number of gatekeeping roles, reduce the number of gatekeepers, make the rules very clear and make them
simple.
applicable, yes, and make them applicable to everybody equally. So for example, when I become Prime Minister, I don't like the word, by the way, I'm looking forward to us having a president. When I become president, I am not going to have any special treatments under the law. For example, there will be no immunity in or outside of the Congress or Parliament, as they call it. No. I will not have any powers to prevent a person from being appointed or being removed because of my personal preference. It will be designed so that the checks and balances allow the necessary parties to intervene and get the job done appropriately. And I'm being very generic here in my comment.
Yes, because I dare say, having gone through what you did, you would not discount the benefit of having structures that prevent manipulation and that would
Absolutely.
insulate power. A veto vote on some things might become a necessity. So I'm not going to hold you
Can I
strictly
speak
to
on
that.
though,
Yes,
veto vote?
please. Yes.
I do not believe a president should have a veto vote.
But are you the people that elect boss?
No, but go ahead and
carefully.
justify.
So what you want to have is the president's job is to bring forward, in consultation with the executive, a policy, a framework, a program, a budget, whatever you will. And he or she, together with the administration, must be able to influence the Congress or the Parliament or the House to vote on it. If all he has is a big stick to say, I am going to veto something, then you have undermined the integrity of the process. Let him or her carry out his role and function because of his or her ability to communicate, to convince, and win support, as opposed to having any big stick measures to implement. I do not support veto powers.
And then you have a return of et tu, Brute. Where I'm going into Julius Caesar,
You know,
who was quite the statesman and the politician, and would have convinced the people of anything, and therefore his friend had to stab him in the back. Not prophesying, just saying that yes, because when all else fails, you stab the man in his back, and we have seen many
It's so
instances
important to
of
have
it.
the checks and balances,
But I do understand that you're speaking of the ideal, and that in the run of
But
things,
what is life if we don't pursue the ideal?
a
You know, it's the
fairy
ideal.
tale.
Hold on. It's the ideal that brings us the science that we have. It's somebody who says, I wish I could call somebody sitting right here in Kingston. I should be able to call somebody in New York and see them face to face. It's an ideal, you know, to which
True,
we
but
work to achieve.
typically that idealistic individual is not the
sense.
president or the prime minister.
No,
but
he's
that's
he's in a room.
about people and
Hold on.
interaction.
Usually that idealistic individual is in a room somewhere churning out ideas,
Yes, yeah.
and a lot more venal,
with
more venal
Here's how
and
we see.
corruptible
I like
persons
for us to build.
are financing it.
Let's build. We have gone through serfdom, slavery, forms of dictatorships and monarchy, to the point of parliamentary democracy, a fake republic in the US and in other areas, and now let us, Jamaica, lead the way with a real republic. Yes, there will be idealism involved, and we have
That's
to have,
important.
we have to have
Yes,
ideals
yes, we're not
to be
discounting it.
right. So let's
Percy and I are
work
quite
for it.
idealistic ourselves,
Absolutely.
and get
We will
laughed
get to a theocracy.
and get laughed
we will
at.
have an ideal.
So we're going back to
Yes, yeah. Well, that is the end of things.
That's the end of
It's where it began, and we're gonna go full circle.
So I
we're
will
moving.
deal with that, and I'll focus on here.
Yeah, we're moving relentlessly.
Yes,
Even here, yeah.
All right, so I think I understand in theory what you're saying, and it's not disagreeable. It's just that sometimes you gotta put it to work before you can fix the
You'll
weaknesses
test it,
that
you'll
emerge. So
test it, yes. You'll
yeah,
test
so
it, yes.
yeah, so I'm okay with that. On the subject of human rights, and it touches on law and order too. There's a tiny report in today's paper about a new clash with the soldier in Denham Town. head of the police association, has complained about the militarization of the police force, and there were these awful videos making the round of the Jamaica Defence Force serviceman kicking the woman, using the gun, and so on. It has turned out that the community is now, and I'm not going to say I predicted it, it is just fairly, it had to happen. If you behave towards the people in such a manner, they're going to turn on you. So the community apparently turned on a soldier who was attempting to conduct a search of a resident at a checkpoint, and he was attacked with a sharp object. Let's assume you are in charge of the government in another 3 or 4 months when things collapse and people say, let's rustle together an election, and the UIC wins. What will you be doing? One, with the Jamaica Defence Force. 2, with the zones of special operations and the things that are already in train.
Right. Well, first and foremost, the UIC understands the problem. The problem of crime is a top-down one, and we've been focusing on it the wrong way. We've been going bottom-up, where we've been harassing the poor, people at the bottom who are struggling, trying to find a way to survive. We're going to focus on finding those who are responsible for bringing the guns into the country, which is not the man on the street. Those who are hindering the police from doing their work, which is not the man on the street. Those who are making decisions that have caused our economy to collapse, which is not the man on the street.
So you're going to clean the swamp?
Yes.
You're going to drain the swamp?
Drain the swamp.
Drain the swamp.
If you will. Now, watch me carefully on this. The army is not to be a policing unit. It is trained differently. They have a very different psychology. They're not a mindset. They're not trained to deal with civilians in the way police is supposed to be trained to deal with them.
So would you keep them, repurpose them?
I'm not repurpose. I'm going to put the army where it belongs, protecting our borders. So no guns, for example, should be coming in, because the army would have been patrolling our borders, would have also been managing our customs in the way that an army can, intelligence, and monitor. So nothing can come in, no penetration. So that's the army. The police now, we have to retrain them so that they know that a part of their job is not just to serve and protect, but also to respect. So if you have the police respecting the citizens, working with the citizens at the community level, living in the community which they serve, knowing the mothers, knowing the fathers, knowing the child, being a part of their everyday movement, so that the people can trust them and report to them when they see things developing. Now, if you're not paying your police properly, then you have compromised them. Because when you have a police officer having 2 or 3 side jobs, he can't truly focus on his work, especially when those side jobs encourage him to compromise law and order. So we have to change the way we treat police by training them better, but also compensating them to be able to work properly in the community. And we must use community policing. It must be that the police is an integral part of the day-to-day life. They must be at the football match, they must be at the community clinic, they must be a part of the school system, the principal must know them, the students must know them, they must be able to help a child before he goes the wrong way. But the child must have respect for the police. And how does he have respect? If the police is treated with respect by the government, in his salary, in his training, in who can get access to become a police officer, because we have too many persons who are becoming police officers who have no business being so, because they don't have the right temperament, they don't have the right academic abilities and so on to be able to learn and understand. So let's make our police attractive, so we have quality people in the police force. Let's make them community based, so they're a part of the community, and let's compensate them well so they can be respected by the society.
So remember now, you've been elected
Yes.
Prime Minister, even if you change it to President.
Yes.
And so time is ticking. You've
Yes.
been sworn in, and Jamaica is looking at you. Would you dismantle the zones of special
Yes, that's
operations?
right. No soldiers on the road in normal policing work. They'll be patrolling the
Right.
borders.
And the men who have been taken into custody under these things, are you going to do something for them?
We have a policy, you see, we call it a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, together with an amnesty program, because we believe many of our young men have been misguided even by political forces into where they are. We want to give them a second chance, give them an opportunity to be rehabilitated. So I want to offer them, come forward, share with us intelligence and information, and we can promise you a better way out. Reform program and back into society, trained and engaging. We want to make sure that we get the intelligence we need to go after the kingfish the big people who are behind us, who you're not seeing. They're not wearing the pants dropping down and they're not walking around. They are in offices. They are masterminding what we're seeing, and we're left with the poor little boys and girls who have been misguided, miseducated, mistreated, and now they're going to suffer. Let's change the equation and see them as a victim and try to help them to get out of the victim status and go after those who are creating the victims and stop the bleeding that we're having right now.
I wanted to, so you have become president, prime minister in regards to it. So I asked you yesterday on Tuesday in terms of what would you do. I believe personally that a lot of the things that government is involved in, they shouldn't be involved in. So what do you think would be the priorities of the Republic in terms of having what you call an enabling environment?
Well, very good point. The key thing in a republic is how it empowers the citizens by virtue of education and by virtue of the economic model. So we want to have a bottom-up economic model where we are stimulating growth at the bottom, making sure that the man at the bottom can easily access a bank account, easily access credit, easily access information from government about the economy that he can use to make intelligent decisions. You want to ensure that you have, especially in Jamaica's case now, we have to re-educate our people. So we must have adult education free of charge that is accessible for adults to quickly learn the things they need to learn to get engaged in the society. We need to have digital libraries that makes it easy for you to go on your phone as an adult and learn anything. In the Jamaican context, not to always the US or Canada or Britain or whatever it is, but you go on your phone, you want to know about A, B or C. You don't have to call and wait forever on the phone to find somebody who gives you different information when you call back each time, but it's there. Quick access to intelligence for you to make a split-second economic decision that's going to affect you and your family. So these are the kind of things that we want to do at the grassroots level. Our healthcare system, change the model from being one where we're prescribing the regular pharmaceuticals to one where we are looking at how can you use natural remedies that's indigenous to Jamaica. How can you live healthy to reduce your cost of healthcare and reduce the national cost of healthcare. Okay. These kind of things.
All right. So what I'm hearing you, what government must do is education.
Yes.
Health.
Yes. Security.
Oh, okay. So those are the three priorities. So we can let go everything else and become a lean small government.
Yeah. Being lean doesn't mean you let go everything, you know. There are better ways to do things.
Okay. So your priorities, because you see, as Minetud said, the way my brain works is, how does this work out on the ground? We have these wonderful ideals and vision, but you're saying if you were elected as the president of the republic or the prime minister, you have to go in as prime minister first, and then we change the system. Right. So the priorities would be education, security, health.
Before that system change,
okay, so we have to fix the constitution.
Yes, we must replace the constitution very, very quickly, because that is a serious problem. If you don't have proper checks and balances, no matter what programs you try to do, it will be undermined by the corruption which is endemic in a bad system.
So what you're saying in terms of our constitution that says economically, as we wrap this up, the external creditor is paid first.
The external creditor is paid?
Yeah, in terms of the first call on the budget.
In the current system you're talking about?
Yes, the current system. Is that you pay
your creditor first.
Right. And you're saying...
And you borrow more from him at the same time.
He refinances you.
So you're refinancing. But our system is a little more nuanced than that. But let me say this. You cannot continue to build an economy based on borrowing and empowering just a few to control the mass of the economy. Okay. You need to create an economy where even if you borrow, you're stimulating growth from the bottom up. So you want the average man in a community like Braes River or Silo or Balaclava, you want the average man there in Central. Gutters and pepper. You want to get down there. You want the farmer who has his 1 or 2 or 3 acres. You want him to be the engine of growth at that level. You want the lady who would have made the drops for her to be back in the economy, making her drops and having an easy way to get that into the supermarket. You want the fellow who is growing ganja right now, you want to legalize that so that he's able to operate legally within the proper framework and not have regulation that stifles him while giving access to those with money and power and for him to just work for them. So you want to open up the entrepreneurship market so every Jamaican, no matter where they are in the economic ladder, they can quickly and easily get into the economy. When I went to Canada quickly, I found how beautifully easy it was. Things that took days and weeks and months here took hours and minutes there for me to get any form of permit, get any form of registration done, and I don't have to go stand up in long lines and wait forever for things.
And wait on the minister to sign something, or for the board to have a meeting and the meeting is cancelled.
I go online and I say, okay, I want to do this, and I say, what do you want to do? I'm gonna go bam, 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 send. Okay, I wake up in the morning, email is back, you're authorized, go right ahead. I don't have to wait for the politician, wait for the minister. And that allows for quicker growth. Somebody said on your program, they wrote on the
chat.
They said, let Mr. Patterson tell us, could he and his wife achieve what they did in Canada, in Jamaica, if they had stayed here? And the answer is yes, but probably not. It would have been harder, more painful, more difficult to achieve in Jamaica what we achieved in Canada. And that's what we want to change. We must make it easier for the Jamaican to succeed here. The average Jamaican.
I have
to be a money person to get everything done.
I have 3 minutes left in this segment, and I must ask you this, so forgive me.
Yes.
You talked about people having access to bank account. When you touch on banking, you are touching on the interconnected world of finance and federal systems and SWIFT codes and IBAN and all the things, which tells us that finance is handled on a global platform, not on a domestic platform. I gotta ask you this. Are you looking to create what I am now calling a people's bank, where there is domestic control and sovereignty over how people trade at the basic level within the borders before it crosses into a federal system?
We two things, and to your point. Point number one, yes, we're going to create a truly robust internal banking system that allows us to freely trade with each other. But most importantly, globally, it's not true that we can't do better globally. Jamaica has put itself at a disadvantage in terms of the way it interconnects with the world from a banking perspective. Why is it that the easy things I can do in Canada, I can't do them here? It's because of our leadership, our management, our government. If you have good government, you can have a better banking system, even with the global connectivity. You can also bypass some of the global restrictions by going to alternative banking arrangements, using different kinds of currencies and so on. So we're going to a model that we call free banking. Free banking is going to allow the Jamaican people to have access like they have never had before. It's going to be easier and cheaper for them to do all kind of banking transactions on a daily basis. It will be a right to have a bank account, not a privilege. The bank must give you an account. Like how they're stopping the UIC now from
the reason I asked about the People's Bank is because a national commercial bank, as Scotia Bank, do not answer to government, and you can't.
The Bank of Jamaica.
And true. So we do need a People's Bank, and that's the area. But it sounds like I've opened something that is too big for the minute that we have. But just I understand clearly, and so should you, that there are some very easy things we can do to make banking and financial transactions within the country easier. So you're not stopped because you have $500,000 where you do with so much cash. And the things that are happening now. Please stay with us. In the next segment, we have the bee lady with us, and she's shaped like a bee too, but you would have to see her to understand. She's a queen. And she is our very own new marketing guru for the Best family. Karen Clark is sitting with us, and it turns out she's a bee lover, a honey lady. And would you believe it, Mr. Patterson is himself a bee farmer. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about, on the practical side now, how this transformation of agriculture can create and enhance the entrepreneurial and the niche markets that Jamaica can lay claim to. Please stay with us. This is the Morning Connection, coming to you live from the Ligani Club. We're in the final segment. We'll be right back. Welcome, Miss Karen. You know, I know you're not shy. So would you please hold the mic good and give me a robust good morning?
Good morning, Miss Karen.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. We welcome you to the Morning Connection Free Flowing Thursday, where we just kind of let the Spirit lead us. And on this particular morning, with Mr. Patterson in the house, he's seated beside a constituent. And this is a bee farmer who is interested in knowing how this new government led by the UIC is going to bring wealth and transformation to the agricultural sector, to those who are seeking to both produce for local consumption and for export, because honey business is big business.
It's big bee
Sweet
business.
success.
It's
Sweet success.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're getting her back into
It's
this swing
sweet
of things.
success.
So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Patterson,
Sure.
because you had outlined how you see organic farming and the role that agriculture can play. What can you say to our bee farmer? She needs access to money, she needs access to land, she needs access to market.
All of which can easily be provided by a government that is well led and well managed.
Yes, we'll start. You are the government.
Yes.
Yes.
If we have a government, for one, all the crown lands that we have will be divested and available for our beekeepers to have their apiaries all over the island. We'll make sure that government doesn't do things that hinder the bee farmer, like, for example, fogging without first consulting with the bee farmer and organizing to protect their assets from big damage. We also would make sure that there's proper water availability, because bees, believe it or not, they need water. And so you have to have proper water systems available for them to access. So good drip system that give the bees what they need is excellent. You also want to provide modern education and training, because there are ways to do beekeeping that can advance your apiary very well. For example, the very covering you put on your bee. Are you using a metal covering which will increase heat in the box, or are you using a plastic covering with a gap that dissipate the heat to cool down the box?
Have you looked at what the current arrangements are in our system now? Are you seeing a gap
Of course,
in how
yes.
ready Jamaica is to encourage and facilitate?
So in our system
growth?
right now, we do have RADA, which sends around extension officers to whatever degree. But the knowledge level in terms of modern beekeeping, there's a gap in that area. The supplies that are accessible here, the importation cost of those supplies, we don't make those supplies here. So if we're not making it, you shouldn't have huge importation costs on the supplies coming in, because
That's government policy.
yes, you're inhibiting the beekeeper. So you need to make sure whatever we do not produce here, make us competitive by reducing the cost of importing those items into the country. And you also want to ensure that you have beekeeping training sessions that are modern, and I'm stressing modern.
Modern.
Yes.
So already I see work for heart.
Yes.
I see easing restrictions and tax
Yes.
around important inputs.
Yes.
So that both the training and the education can be handled by heart.
Yes.
Would you keep RADA? I mean, what do you think of RADA as an agency?
I think we need to move into a very different age right now of how we do these things. So for example, RADA, we need to move to an intelligent way of disseminating information. I talked earlier on about a digital library. It's important that we have a very free, accessible digital library with up-to-date modern information for every single sector in Jamaica, including the beekeepers. So you can easily find and get what is relevant to Jamaica. For example, our zone, our tropical zone, the temperatures in the different areas and space in Jamaica, what is optimal for the bee here. For example, what you have in Clarendon will be different from, say, what you have in
St. Elizabeth.
St. Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And not all of St. Elizabeth, some parts
Some
of
parts.
St. Elizabeth. Southern St. Elizabeth different from northern, northeast different from southwest. So
Talking about the microclimates.
microclimates
Yeah.
and so
So-
on, yes, the ecology that is there.
So that is all knowledge based, and
Yes.
I hear you on that. I want to ask Ms. Clark now, any of what he's saying, would that have assisted you in your journey into bee farming? What was it like for you entering the business?
Well, it still is a challenge. We have issues like theft, per their last name. Now,
I'm afraid
there
them
is-
a thief with the bees is stealing them.
nobody steals. No ordinary person
Yeah.
steals bees like that. It has to be
Another beekeeper.
Another beekeeper.
Okay.
So you need more honest beekeepers.
Yes. The other thing is that even if you do report it to the police,
You have the
well, I
expertise.
mean, I've not experienced.
Alright, you gotta keep the microphone close to you.
experience dealing with bees and. But I forgot to write about that and.
Okay, so right away you can see what he has said about people being better trained, more knowledgeable would affect everything.
Everything.
So that would be a plus. What about access to inputs at reasonable cost?
Yes. We need access to equipment and stuff coming in.
Funding.
Funding for that would be great, and as you mentioned before, modern training, because in our group, Women Bee Farmers Association of Jamaica, we do from time to time get funding, and we bring trainers from New Mexico and other parts of the United States and so on. We do use up a lot of the byproducts from the hive, the propolis. We make soaps and lip balms and lotions and hair oils and all sorts of things. But we need to expand on it.
So
We
you-
are
yeah.
known, Jamaica is known to be a country of samples.
That's a point.
Samples, because then when somebody sees these samples
Listen,
and
how
orders,
much, how much can I get? We can't respond to that.
excuse me,
But if you are only able to produce samples, then we need to develop a niche market that if you're getting it from Jamaica, it's going to
And the-
premium price.
yes, but there is another factor to that also. Now, the government does bring in, agencies through the government bring in a lot of chemicals. That's mainly used by the farmers. Now, those are neonicotinoids. Those are nerve controlling chemicals for insects, and incidentally, a bee is an insect. Now, when the bee goes on these crops, takes it back to the apiary, everybody dies. So we need to stop that, those chemicals from coming in. The bee need to pollinate. That is what carries on our existence as humans. So if we're
Well,
killing the
Mr.
bees,
Patterson is into organic farming, so
Yes.
right away you can see where changing the kind of fertilizers
Very much so.
would make a difference. All right, so it sounds like you want to vote.
pardon me?
Sounds like you want to vote. I want you to talk about though what you are doing. Tomorrow is Bee Day.
Yes, World Bee Day. There would be an expo, whole celebration
Where?
at
What,
Hope
Hope
Gardens.
Gardens. Give us the information that people can go and become a part of learning to make more honey.
Are we going to get free honey?
You're going to get honey tomorrow.
We're not able to even able to produce enough. Yes, we're having a big challenge in that, and Mr. Patterson does know that too.
Yes. I mean, BeeSweetJamaica.com. We're doing fairly well. We had a pretty good year this year, last year into this year. Many of our other apiaries around didn't do so well. I think the big difference is that because I kept a lot of forestry around my apiary, they were protected from some of the elements that affected other apiaries. And the way that we managed our water availability was very good as well. I found that our bees liked the fact that we place a lot of water in good proximity to where they are. And
So the bees drink water? That's what you
yeah,
say?
man.
That's
Yeah,
your
man,
bit,
very
your bit.
important.
I know.
And also,
Yes.
Listen to this
here's
bit.
a bit of there's a little manga falling. Here's a key thing that happened is that we did well because a lot of farmers were not farming close by. So the pesticides and stuff did not
which-
affect us as much, and it
Yes.
affected you very much. So a lot of our farmers have become poor nearby, and the cost
So you
of input-
profited from their poverty.
I did. Well, it's life.
The bee did.
So what happened was they and I've watched this over the years.
Yes.
They started out with this lovely, the inputs you're talking about, and it gave them high yields initially. but then the yield becomes less and less over the years.
Talking about the farms,
and the cost of inputs keep rising.
Which is what they want to see happening.
Exactly.
That is a plan,
It's a plan. That's why the UIC wants to bring Jamaica back to organic farming, but not just regular organic farming. Well-managed organic farming, the way we do it in the Netherlands, where they get mass production, but they control all of those issues you're talking about to prevent the kind of problems we're having in the beekeeping industry right now.
All right, I have two questions from online that I have to put to Mr. Patterson before he goes. While I get the questions, you can wrap up your bee appeal.
Okay, it's a Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries celebration of World Bee Day 2022. And the theme is Bee Engaged, celebrating the diversity of bees and beekeeping systems. And that's tomorrow, Friday, May 20th. And it's going to be located on the front lawns of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries at Hope Gardens Complex, Kingston. And it starts at 10 a.m.
And it's a free event.
It is
no
free.
cover charge. All right. Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful.
Thank you so much.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, we gotta try the beautiful punning. All right. I have two questions for you, Mr. Patterson. Big ones. And this is from Taki, very faithful listener of ours from out of the U.S. He says, what do you think of the environment, and what are you planning to do about the mining operations that are impacting the environment? And you know the cockpit one is a big one. And I have to tack something onto it. Pardon me for punning your name, Taki. Are you in any way hesitant or fearful about revoking licenses and dealing with the fallout when you see?
I believe squarely in ending the mining operations in Jamaica. It is not sustainable. It is contrary to our long-term economic interest, and we need to move away from mining and move to farming.
So the extractive industries are done for you.
Yes.
Now, naturally, if they are listening, and I expect that they are, those who are in favor of doing this kind of work in emerging or developing economies are immediately writing a check for the other guy and say, we gotta make sure that this UIC man don't see the light of day.
Absolutely.
You're prepared for that?
Of course, and in fact, that's why we're going after the middle class.
That's why we're jumping.
We want the middle class to get involved and help to fund the UIC so that your children, your grandchildren will not suffer the cancerous effect of mining and artificial organic material in our farming. We need to make sure we go back to organic farming, stop the mining, and create a healthier Jamaica for all Jamaicans.
So you're jumping to the next generation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The Jewish community have done.
Yes.
Yeah. And then now, Taki again, on the business of education. I tell you, the universe is fighting this question. There has been like every kind of noise between breeze and bike noise. All right. The education system that needs radical change, he says. What are your views in regard to addressing the social problems?
Yes.
Will there be a family life program? He's giving you a hint at what he wants to hear. Will there be a family life program, self-actualization, resolving conflict issues, history, etc., as part of the process, catering from kindergarten, basic school, throughout the tertiary levels? So he has answered it for you, but I guess...
He's reading the UIC manifesto.
All right,
supporting
okay.
from it. So that's where we're going.
Yes.
But most importantly, though, on the education front, we're going to make it an Afrocentric education curriculum. This is very important. We need to give our people a full sense of who they are and the potential for our people as black people.
Man, you're just buttering me up now when you start that kind of talk.
I wanted to ask you.
I'll slip out of your hand at this rate.
I wanted to ask you, have you been impacted and influenced by Marcus Garvey?
Absolutely. Marcus Garvey is my hero. He is the one Jamaican who, for me, what he has accomplished, if you think what Marcus Garvey has accomplished without all of what we have
the
today,
technology and the
build such a massive UNIA organization to overcome in America as an immigrant, in America without even citizenship, he was able to move the black Americans to have faith in themselves and to lift themselves up. That's what we need now in Jamaica and globally. So Marcus Garvey is my hero, and I've read his books, I've studied his life, and I went to Africa myself and made sure that I went to Ghana And Ghana has 30 million people. And as God lives, there are 30 million Jamaicans.
That's what you mean. I went to Ghana, Kenya.
I went into a community in Kumasi. I lived with them for about a week in a what you call it now, a tribal community.
Right.
They don't speak any English.
Right.
I lived with them for a week, no English.
Right.
And we eat together, we make joke, we laugh, just like Jamaicans. And I'm like, they can't speak my language, I can't speak theirs. But
How is this happening?
We just bonded.
Yeah.
And that was such a transformative experience for me. Then I went into the inner city of Accra and see how the people hustle and how they make things work in a difficult situation. I'm like, my God, this is Jamaica. And then I observed something else. They actually follow the same system of governance that we do. And here's the problem. The same system leads to the same results. So even though Ghana is 100 times richer than Jamaica, gold, oil, everything, they still have the same problems we do because they embrace the same colonial model.
Them have the same mother.
Yes, and so we now need to realize that it's not because Jamaica is small, it's because we're under a system that prevents us from realizing our full potential. So a UIC government is going to relinquish the colonial control in our country and give Jamaica back to Jamaicans and embrace our African heritage.
All
right, one last question, and I have to place it because it is from a prophetess.
Yes.
What are your plans to tackle this employment, labor drain, and importing employment that the Prime Minister spoke of?
I'm glad you brought that up because very shortly the UIC will be hosting a job expo where we're inviting all of those persons who have skills or unemployed in particular, and we're going to make a presentation to the government of the hundreds of Jamaicans who are skilled but unemployed. We believe that the approach of the government of trying to sell us the idea that they need to import
skilled labor
is an indictment on 78 years of these two parties being unable to build a Jamaica that can build our own roads, can build our own hospital,
build our own houses, and so on.
So we're going to change that.
And nature is joining with you because this is like a
all of
right.
It's great on.
Yes.
You could see that this could continue for a while.
Exactly.
Let me do the thank yous because we're in the last 10 minutes of the program. Thank you so much. You traveled from St. Elizabeth. You stayed at our club. Please give us some good reviews online and everywhere else.
The club was perfect. I enjoyed everything from the food to the welcome to the service. A great club. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Well, thank you so much.
Gentry coming in from the country.
Yes, you have used it exactly as it was intended all those years ago by the white people who gifted it to us, and how they must be turning in their graves. Not only is a woman sitting and speaking on their lawn because women were not allowed, but there's a black man saying it was perfect. This is a nice note on which to end.
It was great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Patterson. We wish you all the best. And we have said that we want to get the word out on anything that is proposing to change some fundamentals in Jamaica. So whenever you need us, we are here.
To the future, yes. A future.
Thank you to all those online who are Omari Jones. Omari, let me remind you that the man said one man, one vote. You have voted 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But to all those who are online sharing with us, we thank you for your input. Those who are on air, I know you miss calling in and giving Mr. Patterson a run for his money, but I tell you what, we will do this again and have him in studio where we take phone calls. Thank you to the crew, and we have 2 Best FM family members who came out to say, wait, they're the marketing people, so they're making sure that we're worth marketing. I hope we pass the grade.
Thank you so much,
Mr. Producer, engineer, and all that you performed this morning. I told you that you would see a one-man band.
Yes, and it's an excellent one-man band.
Yes, I take some credit for training him.
I think so too,
Pastor Percival, thank you.
Boy, this is a producer. Better want the pass. Better want the pass.
If he had a microphone.
Price to pay for that.
But you'll notice he has not cut me off.
There you go. Yeah.
This is the start of the Morning Connection weekend, so we say have a great weekend because we won't be on tomorrow. Tomorrow morning you'll get to listen to Orit, and I hope Orit have plenty to say about the many things that have been happening. Please stay tuned with Best FM. We're trying to make ourselves indispensable to your life. How you think, what decisions you make. There should be something for you on the Best FM radio family. So thank you all. Signing off. Pastor Percy, you know you always have the last word.
Well, good. Don't book it too.